All right, everyone. Welcome back to Midnight Magic Musings. I am your host, Lord Cephas, and this week I am joined once again by the Earl of Florida. Earl, how are you doing this evening?
High and dry and cool.
Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, you are not having a visual illusion. We are joined by a third member, not just a friend, but a brother, a spiritual brother, and a brother in every possible way. We are joined by BrokenAnsible. BrokenAnsible, introduce yourself. Tell us how you're doing this evening.
I am in the armpit of America known as Alabama. It is about 95 degrees here. Humidity is, it might as well be raining because it's wet outside. Um, I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be here and I can't wait to get started.
Well, man, we are glad to have you along for the ride. Appreciate you joining us here. We try to change things up every week, just keep you guessing and then not knowing what exactly we're going to do. But we did say in our premiere episode last week, we had a special focus this week, and that was we were going to put together a list of our favorite video game adaptations into movies. So we don't want to dilly-dally too much. We want to jump right into it because we all have a top 10 list. And BrokenAnsible, since you're our guest this week, would you go ahead and give us, and we'll do this in reverse order, sort of like the reverse version of the NFL draft. What video game that spawned a movie holds the number 10 spot on your list? Tell us a little bit about it.
So for my choice, and this was a really tough one because there's a lot of them that can slot in and out of this one. Um, but I did pick Warcraft.
Nice.
So I love the Warcraft game, the multiplayer game of World of Warcraft. I'm not a big fan of the games that were just standalone kind of real time strategy games, but World of Warcraft really kind of draws you in, and over the years, it's brought a lot of happiness to a lot of people. And I thought that as somebody who isn't as much into the lore as a lot of these other Warcraft fans, um, I know a lot of people didn't like this movie, but as somebody who's just on the periphery of this and just enjoyed the game for the mechanics and the social aspects of the game and some of the content, I found it really good. I found it to be, I mean, they did ape the Moses story a little bit, which I actually appreciated. And they told a pretty balanced view of the core idea of the Alliance and the Horde. The Alliance actually are really the villains in a lot of cases, where the bad guys are actually the good guys. They're orcs, right? So they're ugly, so they automatically are the bad guys. It's kind of like my life, right? Uh,
Your
so
love accepted here.
so I really enjoyed the story they told. I enjoyed the hero journey from multiple sides. I really wanted there to be a sequel, but for those reasons, I chose that one. And the special effects were pretty good.
Cool. Earl, what would you say about this? Here's number 10 selection.
I think it's a solid choice. Again, I'm also on the peripherals of the Warcraft. I never really entrenched in the video game playing, but I on the peripherals I have an idea. I do know that it had a lot of fans that loved it, and it had a lot of fans that cried out in anger and rage. But one thing that you can say is both sides went and saw this movie because the box office was 439 million worldwide, which surpassed Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, which at the time was the highest grossing film, video game adaptation at least. And so, they showed up and showed out, and I would not have been unhappy with a sequel.
Yeah, that Duncan Jones did a good job. He's an underrated, very underrated
Yes.
dude.
So it's interesting, Earl, you bring that up. Again, I also on the periphery as well, but when you start to dig down into the numbers of Warcraft, doing a little bit of research on it, it definitely came in as a loss for Universal. And it depends on who you believe. The Hollywood Reporter, I think, said it was what 15, 16 million that it lost. But some of the executives are running around saying, nah, it was anywhere from 25 to 30 to 40 million. You never know who to believe when it comes to that. But it does hold a distinction. And Earl, you referenced it. It is the first video game movie or video game film, I should say, in history to cross the $400 million ticket sales on a global scale.
Exactly.
Severely underperformed domestically, but around the world, it did really, really well. And that brings up an interesting point as we start to delve into our lists. It's going to be very interesting because I know I have some on my list that maybe domestically did not do well, but the overseas market really came through, really bolstered the movies, and in some cases earned a movie a sequel, and in some cases it still did not give them that opportunity. But I
Yeah,
think
the
that's a
numbers.
solid choice there.
The numbers I think are 47 million in the United States that it grossed, and so 391.7 million in other countries, and it had 160 million production budget with another 110 million spent on promotion. So you're talking about 270 million price wise. So 270 million, but your total is 439. Where do you draw the line of success or failure? And we've been having that same discussion for the last few weeks.
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think that one of the biggest problems is that they probably had rewrites and the time extension for this movie, like it was in production hell for so long. We might not be seeing a lot of the money that would be given to this movie. They're probably looking at past failures and stop and starts as well, and figuring that into the reasoning why they, even though they did amass a lot of money, they did, spend a lot on marketing, but there's a lot of Warcraft movies that are on the cutting room floor before this one. And if they didn't hit that, probably 750 million, because I think when this movie came out, movies were starting to talk about hitting the six, seven, $800 or $1 million marks a lot. And I think this one had higher expectations. So even if it did well, they're probably going, oh wow, but what about the 5 other Warcraft movies that never even got out of pre-production? Um,
You also need to consider that it's competition because it came out with The Conjuring 2 and Now You See Me 2. And those are two completely different genres. You have the horror genre there, and then the magic adventure thriller genre of Now You See Me 2. And both of them were sequels, and so they had a built-in audience on top of that. And then I think another one was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Out of the Shadows, also released a week prior. So that's a family-friendly kid film as well. So now you've got 3 completely different genres. And where does Warcraft really fall in that? It's a family film, as much as you could
no,
say, Lord of the
it,
Rings or Conan the Barbarian would be.
yeah, I agree with that.
So
And
it had a struggle there to find footing, which didn't help it out.
no, it didn't. And in a world where, especially where Marvel had really kind of began really on that ascension path that BrokenAnsible is talking about, where the returns were really inflated because of the amount of money that franchise or those franchises were making. Sometimes we see an unfair comparison. We certainly saw that, I think, with Shazam and how it was viewed. A successful movie, a good movie,
Yeah, I loved it.
break that threshold. We talked about that last week quite a bit. Kind of the way Hollywood maybe skews numbers one way or the other, maybe a little differently than us normal folk or whatever, however normal we are.
They need to balance their expectation with hope and anticipation, and then also look at the numbers and go, well, we made $100 million off of it, regardless of how you want to spend it. Over
Yeah,
100 million.
You know what?
I
I could use an extra 100 million. I'm not ashamed to admit it.
yeah, to your point there, you bring up Shazam. I would be in for Shazam 2. I would actually probably go see it in the movie theater. I did not see the new Batman in the movie theater, and I would not go to any Marvel film again in the movie theater for maybe the next year or two. But I would be all in for Shazam 2.
I enjoyed the whole vibe. I thought it was cool. All right. Well, BrokenAnsible he's broken a sin now. He's given us his number 10. Earl, I'm going to hand it off to you. What video game is your number 10 entry?
My number 10 is also one that I'm on the peripherals with, and may have some people disagreeing with it. It would be Uncharted, the one that just came out with with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, a new one. Do tell.
It's a new one. It grossed 401 million worldwide, so it became the fifth highest grossing film of 2022 so far. And also considering the market where it came in this year post COVID, the ticket prices are the box office is obviously showing still showing effect from COVID and also the economy and how it is now. So the fact that it was able to make 400 million, I think goes well. Now again, I wasn't an avid player of Uncharted. I was a fan of, I've seen other people play it, so I know they went with a younger Drake, which makes sense if you want to make it a franchise, and they obviously very much want to because, spoiler alert, there is a post-credit scene that leads to potential sequels. And but I think with a budget of 120 million and with the star power that they had and the chemistry that the actors had, and so the characters had, I think it was a fun Indiana Jones esque action flick that it was fun, and I took my kids to see it, and it was a good family flick as well, and I enjoyed it for what it was.
All right. I think that's a solid selection. BrokenAnsible, what's your take on that? Uncharted.
So I recently watched it. Well, actually, did something I normally haven't done in a long time. I actually woke up one Saturday morning. I was it was like a week before I went down to Florida the last time, and I laid down on the couch and I bought this movie because I knew my uncle would want to see it too. Um, and so I bought it off of, I think, the Amazon store, just sight unseen. I heard it was okay. I'm actually a fan of the games. I have all the games on the PS3. I have the when I bought my PlayStation 4 Slim, I got the Uncharted edition.
Yep.
I really appreciate everything they did for the PlayStation 3 because until Uncharted really came out, the Xbox 360 was punching it in the gut. Um, Uncharted really brought the PlayStation 3 as a console to be taken seriously, and Naughty Dog really hit a home run with this game. Um, you know, the movie, I will say this, it could have been my top 10. Uh, I I really it was a very hard decision for me to cut this from a movie Warcraft in because as a movie, Uncharted is the better film. It is a more focused story. There is a there it is very linear. Warcraft is you really don't know what's going on if you don't know the Warcraft story. If you're just watching it, you may have to watch it a few times if you don't really know there's the Alliance and the Horde, and they're trying to tell two different stories that are really going to converge. Uncharted is really one story, and one it starts at one end and ends at the other, or so to speak, how they do some movie tricks in the movie. Uh, it may start in different places, but I liked it. Was it great? No, it wasn't great, but I did enjoy it. It's the acting is decent. I liked all the characters. It's just predictable. And this movie, and I don't know if it's because it is picking a video game like millions of people have played. How can you subvert expectations? Because if you try and subvert expectations, it's going to fall flat on its face because the fans are going to be like, it's nothing like the video game. But if you're too much like the video game, they're like, well, it was a predictable story. And I think
Exactly.
Uncharted did not completely rise above to set itself into its own. It's a serviceable movie. It's fun. It's not gonna you can zone out on it. You could if you bought this like me, I could put it on in the background and do daily work, and it would be fine. Um, I am looking forward to the sequel. I think they've really set him up to be the next Indiana Jones. So we'll see what it goes on from here.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in, I bought the PS4, have the Uncharted video game edition as well. Loved playing through those. My wife has enjoyed playing through them. My kids have played through them. So it was really nice to see how do I say, a really popular video game franchise that may have a little more broad appeal than Warcraft. I mean, if I can sit down and play Uncharted, okay, you're shooting the bad guys, try not to get hit, that kind of thing. Whereas I think Warcraft is far more nuanced and involved than maybe that is. But it was good to see it do well, because I always want video game adaptations to do well, because if they do well, maybe we get more of them. So Earl, I think that was a really good choice for number 10, Uncharted. So I'm going to throw mine in real quick, give you my number 10 spot. And this one might be a little controversial. In fact, I hope it is. Great man once said controversy creates cash. We're going to find out. My number 10 selection is the Angry Birds movie. I know, I knew that was going to happen. One of you or both of you were going to be like, why, Lord Cephas, why? I'm going to tell you exactly why. It was fun. It was based on a game that was an app, still is an app. It was extremely successful. I felt it was a really good adaptation. I mean, look, they're fighting green piggies, for goodness sakes. Okay, so it did not make a tremendous amount of money here in the United States on a domestic level, but it really cleaned up on the international side. It had a budget of 73 million, ended up raking in a worldwide cum of almost $353 million. In fact, not only did I enjoy that movie, but based on its success, they greenlit a second movie, the Angry Birds movie. Now, the original Angry Birds movie came out in 2016. In 2019, they did the Angry Birds movie number 2. Unfortunately, that one didn't do as well. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first one. The budget was actually cut for the second movie, but unfortunately, it still made roughly in the same range, a little bit more domestically. It did not have the worldwide appeal that the first one did. It only took in, I believe it was just under 150 million, roughly, is what that number ended up being. So it wasn't the mega hit that number 1 was, but still, that is my number 10 entry into the video games that turned into a movie. And in fact, actually spurned a little bit of a franchise, if you will. So BrokenAnsible, tell me, how do you feel about Angry Birds as a movie?
Never watched it. Never will.
How dare you?
I am completely emotionally unattached to that franchise. I could find the interest in the game. It was a social phenomenon, or contagion, might be a better word for it.
Wow.
And I mean, it's interesting. I'm not, if people find joy in it, I am happy for them. It doesn't interest me in the least. I did think when this movie was coming out, and I saw the previews, obviously in the movie theater previews when we could go to the movies, that it's intriguing that they could make such a you know world. They could do some world building in something that is essentially a bug. Like, this game is just a jank piece of crap. Can, can I say that here?
It's out there. We're recording. Go.
But its game loop was so simple, and it became a meme unto itself, that people just played it, and that's fine. Hey, look, more power to people. A lot of people find it fun. That is a valid game loop, but there is nothing there. There is absolutely nothing there but somebody who failed at making a video game and happened into $1 billion. Uh, so that's an interesting, factoid in itself. The fact that they actually made a movie around such nothingness is Blair Witch 2.0. It's how do we make something out of nothing? So, hey, that is definitely. I wasn't going for animated movies. Just that, by the way, none of my movies are animated. So the controversy has been kicked off. I didn't know we could have animated movies on our list. So, But yeah,
I'm literally a functioning 13-year-old boy most of the time, so I can't help it.
but it's an interesting choice, and I think that there's a lot to be said for the fact that it is a movie that came out. It's basically like if a phoenix rises from the ashes, you'd be questioning the phoenix. What ashes did you come from?
Well, I'm gonna try and pick up what's left of my dignity off the floor here.
No, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie. And the movie may be good. And it might actually be a good movie.
So
I've
I
never watched
think
it.
part of it are you okay, Earl? Do you need a break? Do you need something to drink?
No, I'm just basking in the ambience of brotherhood right now.
Yes, you just continue to bask there. I think part of it for me is playing with my nephew. He absolutely adored that game to the point that we even bought the board games as well and sat on the floor in my kitchen, would fire the Angry Birds at the different targets and stuff. So I actually think it's a really good example of a good adaptation because it's not that far from the game. It's pretty spot on. Just more exposition than you actually get in the game. But to me, this is good.
Well, that's the interesting point about the game because the game is so nothing that everybody on the planet tried to, well, as an exaggeration, in that space tried to make their Angry Birds because this guy put ads in this free game that he stumbled upon one of the most addictive, stupid game loops, and he caught fire, and everybody tried to do it because they're like, I can do that. I can fail upwards. And it spawned memes. It became a living meme. And upon that meme, they built a temple. And in that temple, they put money. I mean, it's crazy. It was as if they were trying to recreate the Minecraft money rush out of Angry Birds. And they were determined and hell bent to do it, and they forced it. That's the way I feel about that. So it's an interesting, actually, social observation uh, piece in pop culture for sure.
All right, Earl, I'm going to throw it to you. Let you get your 2 cents in.
I like how he said they failed upwards and made a lot of money. I trip up the stairs and all I get are bruises, and people laugh.
You're not quite flush with cash straps like they are, huh?
Now, I'm going to completely blow Broken's perspective out of the water. You ready?
I don't know. Try me.
Here we go. I did not watch it either because I was not interested.
Man.
Wow. Now, having said that, I do have kids that were interested in it. Now, before I get to that, like he said, it became a phenomenon. Everybody downloaded some version of this Angry Birds game. I think I downloaded Angry Birds 2 and got annoyed at it and deleted it. And the ads also annoyed me. But then they came out with the Star Wars version, and I had to download that, and I played through that. The kids obviously liked it on the tablets, so it was a phenomenon where if the adults didn't like it, there was a market where it was just a mind-numbing, straightforward. It was an updated version of the bow and arrow game, the stick figure bow and arrow. You're literally aiming and firing, except you made birds out of it, and you're hitting piggies, and it's they turned a very basic idea into a massive multi-million-dollar empire, pretty much. Now, so the first one that came out, I didn't see. I didn't go to the theater to see it. I didn't take my kids to see it. They wanted to see it, so I let them watch it at home and rented it. And they enjoyed it. And when the second one came out, I asked if they wanted to see it, and they're like, nah. So having not watched it, I can only assume that there just wasn't a whole lot of content that made them go, let's watch it again, version 2.0. Now I can't. Yeah, again, I didn't watch it, and I know you mentioned that the budget only dropped about. It went from 73 million to 65 million, but worldwide it went from 352 million at the box office to 152 million at the box office. So they still made money, but I think same thing with the games was once you played a certain amount of them, when the new version came out, you just didn't download it unless there was a gimmick like I downloaded Star Wars because I'm a Star Wars fan, and being able to fire, you know, giant birds that could electrocute things was just amusing to me for a certain amount of time. So it did not make it on my list. I actually thought about it, but considering the fact that I never watched it, and I never had the desire to, that affected my personal list. But I do like that you put it on the list. You watched it, you enjoyed it, your family enjoyed it. You watched both of them, I assume.
I'm ashamed to admit it now, but yes, I watched them both, liked them
So,
both.
so I mean, the fact that there is a market out there, so they made money. Now I haven't heard anything about a number 3, and I'm
no,
not entirely
and
sure.
since number 2 was made in 2019, and here we are in 2020, I don't know that will happen. It's not the cultural phenomenon that it was. So,
Broken, are you in 2020 as well? Or are you in 2022 with me?
Yes.
I mean, Lord Cephas says it was made in 2019, and here it is in 2020. I'm
you know, that's
I agree. The well is dry. You can tell by the budget cuts and the money it made. I would not count anything out in this world because they will. I think the only thing that is sacrosanct is maybe Back to the Future, but once the guy dies, they'll greenlight it. Um, so who knows? But I think it may have legs. And here's the big kicker. You mentioned the Star Wars Angry Birds. You could see a Star Wars Angry Birds movie,
I'm sure
and
that's a possibility.
I think upon that they could absolutely bring out an Angry Birds 3 or Angry Birds Star Wars, or because we do have to talk in these terms now with Disney Plus and all the streaming services. This could easily be a series on Disney Plus.
Can
I
you
was just going to say,
imagine?
I'm making notes here to talk to Bob Chapek about all this. So keep going. I'll email
Can you
him.
imagine?
I think
Can
that
you
market it has not
can
dwindled.
you imagine an Angry Birds Infinity War?
I believe they could make a what if series out of Angry Birds, and I would actually watch that.
I would too.
Yep. I
There's that gimmick.
it's the gimmick, and unfortunately, I think we could all fall susceptible to an Angry Birds gimmick if it was streamed on Disney Plus.
Yes.
I
Probably true.
actually, it may be one of the strongest things they would have to offer. To
The
be
only
honest,
thing that can make it better is if it were a Lego.
look,
No.
here's the deal. Here's the deal. Could you imagine Baby Yoda in an Angry Birds movie? That would
Lord.
cue billions of dollars out of nowhere. They may save the economy.
The Lord's
Uh,
will be done.
We're going to cut
look,
this out the podcast. We do not want to
yeah.
spawn. I don't want to go see an Angry Birds movie. Please don't.
All right.
cut this part from the podcast.
Literally, it's 2 on 1. We only have done 3 selections of number 10. All right. Well, we're going to move on now. BrokenAnsible, who is in your number 9 slot?
So here's the deal. This number 9 could have probably been number 2. This number 9 probably deserves number 2 on my list. But everything between 9 and 2 have deep resonance with me. So this movie, unfortunately, is good summer flick movie, and because the video game didn't grip me as much, and it's an older one, and that's would be Rampage. I love me some rock. I love me some crazy situations. I love how they went the Alex Jones conspiracy theory CRISPR stuff, which may not be so conspiracy theory these days with the Chinese CRISPR projects. But I thought that they nailed this movie. I mean, how does he not nail movies? I mean, he's been one of the most prolific actors. He's a great human being. He should be president. Um, the Rampage is just a great film. The video games, when I was growing up, I never actually played a Rampage game, maybe at an arcade that I can't remember. I remember them in the arcades and of course on the consoles. I played my first Rampage game on the Nintendo Wii or PlayStation 2 with a friend named Stu. Um, and we had a great time. And it was a one-time thing. We may have rented it back when that was a thing. And I thought this movie, while it didn't really, you could have not called this movie Rampage and draw from the source material. And I don't think it did draw much from the source material. But this was just an all-around good film to me.
Awesome. Excellent choice. All right, Earl, what do you say about his number 9 selection?
Well, I'm going to defer and let you go first.
All right. Well, I actually thought when I was reading up on the movie, because it appears in my list as well, so we're on the same track, at least there. We can still sort of be friends. It did okay in the United States. It did about 101 million. Nothing to write home about. But when you add in the worldwide cum, I believe it was what 428, 429, 430, somewhere in their range, $1 million.
Yep.
But what I found interesting was it cost 120 million to make, but they spent 140 million dollars for marketing. So what's that? Help me out, math. 260, 120,
Yeah,
130, 260.
Yeah, so they made about 170 million.
But here's the kicker. Deadline Hollywood actually reported it would take them probably 2 years after all that accounting is done. And that's one of the things, Mike, you were alluding to, the way the accounting works in Hollywood, just to break even. That it would take that long for them just to break even. I find that the Hollywood math very interesting. That's not my background. Yeah, but it did well. I love The Rock as well. I will also put in a plug for Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Huge fan of his. Just about everything he touches, I will watch. So I enjoyed seeing him in that film as well. I think it's a good video game adaptation. I mean, admittedly, does it pull tremendously from the source material? I mean, there are monsters in it, right? That's in the video game. That's kind of where it diverges, I think, from the material. But hey, I think it's a good movie adaptation. People went to see it. I saw it. I liked it. Earl, what do you say?
Well, I think I need to preface my comments with my number 9 is Rampage.
Of course it is.
So again, you mentioned the 428 million and the how much it spent, but again, as was already mentioned, Dwayne Johnson is gold.
Yes.
He's delightful to watch on screen. Everything from chasing around a white gorilla named George, I believe, to some horrible 3D effects in the Scorpion King 2, or the Mummy 2, I guess. The games, I remember playing them, a bunch of creatures destroying stuff, and so it was a straightforward movie. The trailers didn't exactly hide anything. You got spoiler alert, you get a giant wolf that flies or glides technically. Beautiful. And a giant alligator, crocodile. I'm not entirely sure if they decided what it was, but I mean, you had all these creatures. It was a creature monster fest, destroying things. You had The Rock, and again, you have Jeffrey D. Morgan, who is just gold. I love him. He's beautiful.
They walked off of the San Andreas set and onto the Rampage set, or vice versa. I don't know, because the movie feels like it's in the same universe, and
they probably used some. They probably used some of the same special effects. San Andreas, everything's destroyed. Rampage, everything's destroyed.
Yep.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. The game was pretty basic, straightforward. Animals destroying buildings, and you got that plus some performances that were memorable and fun. And I can recall this movie being fun, and the kids enjoyed it as well. So it got 2 thumbs up and made it on my number 9.
All right. Well, that went much quicker than I thought it would. Now I'm here behind the 8 ball because that's not my number 9.
You're fired.
I know. So I guess I might as well get my number 9 over here in sadness. Again, I like to stir it up a little bit. So here comes my number 9. I have to do it. At number 9, Super Mario Brothers. It is the quintessential video game that was made into a movie. And if nothing else on my list, it holds a special spot in my heart because I believe that that is the first really video game adaptation of a major video game into a movie. Now, admittedly, it wasn't that great, but it holds a special place in my heart because I got to see it in theaters. Now, if you go down the list of who was in the movie, there were some really big name actors at the time. You had Bob Hoskins in it, fresh off his run in, what was it, Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yep.
You had Dennis Hopper, perhaps some substance abuse challenges there. But even he admitted the movie may not have been the best. You had a very young John Leguizamo, long before he was what was it, Spawn, I guess. Fisher
Oh yeah, he was the clown. That's right.
Yeah. Fisher Stevens, who had just finished up a tremendous season on the Blacklist this past season. I encourage you, if you're behind, get caught up and watch it. It's really good. The movie itself, not great, but what it opened up, I think, has earned it a spot on my list. Financially, it is what they refer to as what is the technical term, Earl? A flop, I believe.
It would be considered a flop, yes.
Budget was somewhere in between 40 and 50 million, and they made a total of under 40. So, yeah, that didn't do well. And no, I know the Earl's going to talk about this, but I'm still his thunder. I do not want to talk about Koopa's dancing in an elevator. BrokenAnsible, I'm sure you've got something to say on the abomination that was Super Mario Brothers. I'm gonna hand it off to you.
So I went to see that, I believe, on a Saturday at. You remember, you know where the Royal Park Cinema is?
I do.
You remember the old Royal Park Cinema Films in Gainesville?
I do.
Yes.
Before they renovated the building, I saw it in that building. I believe it was a matinee. I cannot remember who I saw with it. May have been with my grandmother. Um, so I don't have anything bad to say about it. It is what it is. It was a film trying to stick way too close to the source material, to the point where Hollywood should have had expectations set on these people. This would not be the last time a movie did this for video games. I did appreciate the fun people tried to have with it. It very much tried to replicate the last 15 minutes of The Wizard, in terms of how cheesy and like deconstructed a video game could be in the real world. So I I don't really have much negativity to say because everybody knows it's just a terrible movie, a film. It'll never, nobody could ever argue how good it could be and be taken seriously. However, it does have a lot of memories, good memories for kids. Remember, as kids, bad movies don't matter. There still can be joy derived from them, and I did derive joy from this movie, even though it was a letdown. I would not buy this movie on VHS, in the coming years of my VHS collection. Didn't buy it on DVD because I don't need to watch it again. After all these, I think I may have watched it. I may have like Netflixed it back when that was a DVD service, and I was just needing a DVD, and just to kind of like see if it was as bad as I remembered it was. But I mean, that's about as much as I can say for it. I don't begrudge it being on anybody's top list for the nostalgia that it might have, right?
Well, yeah, I think for what it represents, or what it represented back then, getting to see a video game that you love playing on a movie, as a kid, you think that's cool. All right, Earl, it's your turn.
I mean, I think it was a masterpiece. I won't tell you what the piece is, a masterpiece of what, but no. I watched it. It was. I watched it when I was a kid, obviously, and I enjoyed it. Now, as an adult, looking back at what was that cartoon? Was it the Game Master, the kid that got sucked into it?
Yeah, Captain and the Game Master.
If they had done something like that, where they were set from when they went from Earth through the portal, and then it became a cartoon. I think they might have had a different
No.
outcome,
Yeah.
maybe. You
Yeah.
know, because
So
then you
what you're
could have.
saying is put the opening credits of Captain and the Game Master in a maybe
Yeah,
Act One form, and then have Act
exactly,
Two and Three going through the cartoon world like an
exactly,
overblown like Transformers movie type epic, and then
exactly.
him coming out or them
And then at
coming
the
out of that
end,
world.
I think that could have been a completely different
Wow.
way of doing it. That I think
You've
could
just solved Mario movies.
have. Now, uh, I think that would have been great. Now, I want to. My only other tidbits I want to throw out there is amusingly, Dustin Hoffman was interested in playing Mario back in the day, and Danny DeVito was supposedly offered the role of Mario before he passed, and both Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael Keaton apparently were tossed the role of Koopa, but they both chose to say no. Those are just interesting little tidbits. But that's my all my information for Mario, and I pray for your mental health, Lord Cephas, because
So,
no,
so one last thing to make myself feel better. I could care less about you two right now. It
no,
is
no.
one of the earliest movies. I tried to research this, and my records are incomplete because, well, I only had a couple of days to prepare for this. It is one of the first movies in cinematic history. It's not the first one that actually happened in 1966. Google it, you'll figure out what it is. I'm not going to tell you what it was because I read it, was like, wow. It is one of the first movies to have a major cinematic release that had a post-credit scene. So just for that alone, I'm going to give it a solid entry at number 9 because it had a post-credit scene before everybody had a
You're
post-credit scene.
you're number 10 and you're number 9. You are failing, Lord Cephas. You are hurting my heart and my soul. Perhaps
Well,
you can be redeemed.
you're not the first person who said that to me, and you probably won't be the last. Okay, Broken Ansible, we are ready for your number 8.
All right. This is actually like a guilty pleasure movie. I have actually watched this movie multiple times, possibly 3 times. Definitely 2, maybe 4 actually. Because I will watch a movie here and then I'll go to Florida, and if my uncle hadn't watched it, I'll watch a movie with him, and then I may watch it again later. So I can't tell you how many times I've watched this, but Monster Hunter. So
That's a deep
Mon-
cut right there.
Monster Hunter is a niche game, or niche, however you want to pronounce that.
Yeah, you can have it how you want.
So it is a absolutely it's a that game to many fans is a religious experience. It's much like Dark Souls in that respect. And I'm a big Dark Souls fan, so I can understand the fandom around Monster Hunter. So Monster Hunter was a PlayStation, I believe PlayStation was the first one, and maybe PlayStation 2. It's been on the PlayStation Portable, it's been on the PlayStation 2, it's been on the PlayStation 4 under Worlds, it's been on the Nintendo 3DS, it's been on the Nintendo Wii U, it's now on, I actually have the new one on the Switch, which is actually a really good game. And then they had the kind of reimagining with Monster Hunter Worlds, or Universe, I think it's Worlds, on the the modern consoles, PS4, Xbox 3, Xbox One, and PC. Um, so to make it more user accessible, because this game is a very Japanese heavy game up until the last couple releases, where it's the gameplay, the game loop is a Japanese centric grind fest. So you are literally going out into the wilderness, you are cutting down some dinosaurs, picking berries, you've got to put down a spit, you got to gather the bones, you got to build your weapons, and all that is to hunt a bloody boss, like a singular boss on the map, of the current place you are. So it's very tedious. And the people who have dived into that have been rewarded with some really good boss battles. So there's a lot of really hardcore fans coming into this, and I've never been a hardcore fan of the series at all. I am a periphery type of observer. I've tried to get into it. Only on the Switch was I able to really do so with any effect. So when I saw this movie, and it's got the gold standard Mia Jovovich, and I believe it's the guy from what was the guy's name here?
Tony Jaa,
Yeah, Tony Jaa. And
martial
to
artist.
to these, these two actors on the same screen, I mean, it just blow my mind. And it's not like it's just, how are these two people in this movie? Like, it's crazy. And the way they approach the movie, that it is almost what you describe how a Mario movie would be. Like, there's this real world trouble, and then they, whoopsie daisy into this other universe. Tony Jaa's character, there the pacing is a little off. Like, you're like, how long has Tony Jaa been where he's been? You know, there's some craziness going on. Why can't these two people just get along as soon as they meet? There's a little, struggle there. There's a very Monster Hunter centric theme, or at least they try to. The world that they build, near the end, and right before Act 3 happens, it feels like a Monster Hunter, at least to me. I know some people may say no, but at least to me, from what I gather from the cutscenes of the real video games that I've played, it felt like Monster Hunter to me. Um, and I would watch another one. I think that the action was really spot on. I think it was enjoyable, as much like uh, it had the feel of a Resident Evil movie type of early Resident Evil movie type of experience. It's just, guilty pleasure fun, and it didn't offend me in any way.
Cool. I like that choice. That's solid. Earl, want to add in your thoughts on this?
This movie was in contention for the list. Did not make the list. Uh, I enjoyed the movie. I played one of the games back in the day, so I had a general idea of what to expect. Much like Broken said, I think there was a little bit of a pacing issue, but that was because of the transition between different acts. And for me, one of the detracting parts was I knew what was going to happen before it happened. It was
Predictable.
relatively predictable.
Yeah.
However, having said that, it was enjoyable. It was, for what it was. It was a fun, rollicking flick, kind of like how Rampage was enjoyable. You had monsters. You knew what was going to happen. You were going to fight, and Mila Jovovich is always. I can't think of a movie that she was in that I've seen that made me go no. And Tony Jaa is a wonderful, great martial artist, and I enjoyed the inclusion of Ron Perlman in the film as well.
Yep.
Now it did, it would be considered a bomb. It cost, I think, 60 million and made only about three-quarters of its budget back in the box office. But you also have to take in consideration when it came out. Again, where it came out during the COVID world of 2020, and so how much of that had an effect on the box office? How much of that had an effect on people going out and seeing it? And where did that go in there? So I enjoyed the film. It didn't make my cut, mainly because of the predictability of it and the pacing issues. But it is a film that, now that it was refreshed in my mind, I might have to put it on my watch list for the future. It was a good popcorn flick.
Yep.
And I would just say, I'm a huge Capcom fan, the video game company, and it's good to see one of their movies make someone's list. I think we covered pretty much everything there, so I'm gonna leave that there. But Earl, what is your number 8?
My number 8 may cause some contention. it's a franchise, a video game franchise that I never actively played. However, I had seen people play it before. I've watched people play it, and I know there's a big fan base out there. And they had two films of it. One was called quite plainly Doom.
Okay. All right.
Now, yeah, now I watched it because I was a fan of Carl Urban, and obviously Dwayne Johnson was in it. And I watched it, and for me, It didn't seem familiar to me from the games. That familiar. There were a few aspects that was familiar, but overall, to me, it was just a monster flick. But it was fun, enjoyable sci-fi flick that just was rock'em sock'em kind of thing. And then they came out with the Doom Annihilation a couple of years ago, and that one would definitely be considered a B flick. But that one uh, was also very enjoyable. It shouldn't have been, but it was. It was quite enjoyable, and like I said, I'm probably going to get some stones cast my way for choosing these two films because neither one of them would be called box office gold at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure the first one came just short of its budget. But you know what? I every once in a while, if I catch it on, I'll sit there and I'm like, "Yeah, Sarge, Dwayne Johnson kicking butt." When when he grabs the gun, we all know what gun I'm talking about. And it's a guilty pleasure that I probably should have not put on the list, but I love it. It's great, And plus, The Rock's a bad guy. Oh, spoiler, he's a bad guy at the end. Fun. How often did you get to see that?
I can think of one other movie actually that's not a video game based movie, but we'll talk about some other day. Ansible, what about you? How do you see Doom in number 8 selection?
Hold on a second. I'm climbing a mountain real quick so that I may stand over the precipice to proclaim I love Doom. It is Doom. Doom, the franchise, is one of my favorite franchises of all video games. It's top five. Um, it's probably the fifth. Okay, it was number one until my favorites came into existence. But so Doom the movie, the first one with Carl Urban and The Rock, that movie is effectively Doom 3, the video. So we had Doom 1 and Doom 2 that were in the original id the pseudo 3D worlds. I remember going into Walmart getting the floppy disk of Doom of the first floor, running it on my 386 SX 33 megahertz with 4 megs of RAM. Had no business. It ran at like 2 frames a second, and I loved every bit of it. And that game catapulted my IT career. So I owe a lot to that franchise and what those guys did with that. Um, I would go on to play that game in just about every form up until, the modern, or until they turned it into Quake.
Yeah.
So when Doom 3 came out, this was a big deal. Uh, so AMD, which is one of the big CPU manufacturers, is the CPU in all the PlayStations and Xboxes these days. They actually bought the company that kickstarted the revolution of graphics for the Doom 3 game. It was the ATI graphics cards back in the day, and they were the top dog. And they had a video card that was capable of playing this in all of its glory. And it was back in the mid 2000s cinematic. It was a cinematic game. They had a cinematic look and feel to this thing. And the Doom movie captured every last drop of that game. They captured the essence of that game. I know it's not one to one, but I feel like in the first person scene, I remember when people were they weren't
Oh yeah.
honestly reviewing this movie. They were being pretentious, and they were like they didn't want to be associated with any sort of fun out of this movie. But they would all say, "But you know what? That first person shooter moment was really really good."
Oh, it's
And
beautiful.
it was a beautiful moment. I'm not sure if we would have that Hardcore Henry movie if that hadn't have been a thing.
Yep.
Um, And so this movie probably is credited to inspiring a lot of people, but I thought this movie was fantastic. I love it.
I feel vindicated.
We
I'm
we
vindicated.
will we may or may not see this movie again in the list.
What about,
Funny thing-
what do you think about Doom Annihilation?
So yeah, I was just about to get that. Doom Annihilation, like you said, it's a B tier movie, right? It's
Mhm.
not. It's not a good. It's not a well produced movie.
No.
But man, is that movie long? And you know what they do? They stuff it full of member berries. And I thought that this movie kind of replicated in the same way that the original Doom replicated the Doom 3. I thought this one it stole a little bit from Doom 3 a little bit, but it actually kind of pushed it into the modern Doom, the Doom 2016.
Mm.
And it didn't effectively get everything, but I thought that and the pacing was a little off, right? It's a
Yeah.
little jarring at first.
It's
It,
choppy a little bit.
yeah, it's very choppy, but it does kind of flatten out into a aliens almost movie, like or an alien almost movie. Uh, which, hey, look, beg, borrow, and steal from the greats. I
Yes.
think it does enough to be enjoyable. I'd probably watch it again. I wouldn't pay money to watch it again, but I would.
But if
I
it
would
was
definitely.
on,
Yeah, if it was on, I wouldn't turn it off. And it is what it is. I wouldn't. It's a failure probably to the studio, and it was direct to DVD, right?
yeah, it was
Was, yeah.
video on demand, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did enjoy it, and I don't think that anybody should give you any anger for that one.
You know what? I think it's a good choice. Again, it's one of the earlier video game adaptations, and you know what? It's spawned two movies, and people love it. I'm happy if they're happy. I'll give you my number 8 very briefly because we've already touched on it already. I had Rampage at number 8, and I already laid out
Haha.
why I think it was worth it. So I will go ahead. We'll be like we're in the Senate here. I will cede my time to the Honorable BrokenAnsible. Broken, would you give us your number 7 movie or video game that became a movie?
So, like Rampage, this movie could easily be higher. In fact, this could be this until this past weekend, Saturday night, this probably would have been my number one in terms of it would be contending for number one. And it's at number 7, mostly because what's in between is nostalgia.
Okay.
And I'll admit it. But Detective Pikachu, this movie had no right being this good. No right whatsoever. This Nintendo has not up into the Pokemon company, whatever that it's called, um, they have rested on their laurels for like 20 years. These games do not I do not care for them. I have some. I have the newest one. I haven't played it yet, but from by all measures, it's I hear it's a really good game, and it intrigued me because they changed the formula. And I don't hate the Pokemon games. They just don't do anything for me, right? They feel like they look like old Zelda games, but they don't play like old Zelda games, and I think that makes my eyes mad. So I'm not a fan of this series, but I've watched the TV show back in the day. When I was a college kid, Pokemon would be on, and the cartoon was great. And Team Rocket was hilarious. They were memeable. That was some of the only anime we would get on television at the time before Dragon Ball Z, caught fire. And I understood everything in this movie. They put it together. They put it together really well. They had likable characters. They did the Pokemon justice. The story was great. It had a good arc. It did not a lot of movies, where the first 2 movies you're intrigued, or the first 2 acts you're intrigued by it, but then you get an ultimate flat, act 3, or at least the transition from 2 to 3 kind of fails, and the movie may end abruptly. I thought this movie did everything that they could to keep this story cohesive, and I didn't want it to end. that's the best thing I can say about it. I wanted more. I thought they did a fantastic world building. I love the world that they built for Pokemon. It felt Chicago, in the future, and the Pokemon in the world were great. I enjoyed it.
I think that's a great choice. Earl, give us your feedback.
My feedback is again, our minds align here. Detective Pikachu is mine. My call, my list. Now I did not come at this movie from nostalgia. In fact, I hate Pokemon. I was not at the right bracket age wise to want to watch Pokemon. My younger siblings did. They loved it. In fact, when the movie came out, I think it was Pokemon 2000. I took my younger sister to theaters to see it, and I remember going into theaters and looking around because I was old enough to drive, and so I took her to see it because she really wanted to see it. And I remember going in and seeing like groups of children with like one adult, and I was like, I know what happened here. They were suckered in. We're going to go see it. Send all the kids with him. They pulled the short straw. He'll suffer through it. Hopefully, he'll make it through the movie. So I remember sitting in there in the theaters, and I had no love for Pokemon. I didn't want to invest time in it or anything. And I remember near the end when Ash, the main human character, apparently dies. He gets hit by a Pokeball, or not a Pokeball, a blast from Mewtwo, and he turns to stone. And the entire theater bursts out from all these children. No, and my voice was mixed in there because I was like, yes. And then a few moments later, when the tears of the Pokemon brought him back to life, you heard all the kids going, yay! And one voice out there going, no. So that's my personal feeling about Pokemon. It just wasn't for me. I didn't hit the right age. I don't know. I was in between the ages where I didn't put time into it. Now, Detective Pikachu, I did not want to see it. I didn't care. I didn't want to do it. I dug in my heels. My kids, unfortunately, like Pokemon, especially my older son. So when it came out, I was like, okay, I'll bite the bullet, take him to go see it. And I should not have found enjoyment in this movie. Almost from the beginning, I was invested, and I shouldn't be invested because I don't care about these characters. But the movie suckered me in. Partially, Ryan Reynolds, uh, great
Amazing.
actor. I mean, he's amazing. I love him. Mr. Deadpool himself, and but even Justice Smith, the young man who was in it, it was familiar enough that I knew what was going on, but they had a few twists in it, and it was entertaining, it was fun, and they suckered me in. And at 433 million at the box office, I'm not the only one. And to tie in with what Broken said, you know what? If they made a second one, I'd take my son to go see it, and not necessarily because he wanted to. It might be maybe just maybe.
Camouflage.
I can't even say it, but you know what? If he wanted to go see it, I'm right there with him, and I'll say it was for him. I'm being a good father, but you know what? I go see it because the first one was entertaining and it suckered me in, and I'd pay to go see the second one. So I'm in agreement, and it hurts my soul to say that I would go see a Pokemon movie, but
Well,
I would.
if that hurts your soul, hopefully
It
this
does.
ratchets up the pain a little bit more. I won't show you my list here, but written at number 7 is Pokemon. So we all three listed that at number 7 in some form or fashion. I took a little bit different perspective from you two. I looked at Pokemon as the precursor, excuse me, to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why. They have 23 animated movies and, of course, Detective Pikachu. So you've got 24 films, literally from 1998 up until 2020. They released at least one movie every year.
And how many series?
Well, I don't know exactly how many series, but I know that doesn't count the TV specials that are shorts that they aired, on Nippon TV, where they have the All Japan, New Japan Wrestling as well. That's a tremendous amount of movies, and yet, I know it doesn't necessarily appeal to you all. It still works. To
Yeah.
me, this is the precursor to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They've shown a way to stay relevant, maybe not to us, but there is a fan base that continues to eat it up. They make money. They do not lose money on these releases. And so for that reason alone, because after 25 years almost, they're still churning out films. Now, yes, they're animated. Yes, they're directed to the kids, but that still deserves some credit for what they're able to do.
As a franchise, what you just said, 20, 25 years, they've become relevant to multiple generations. It's not just one generation and now nostalgia. They've become relevant to multiple generations. My sister, who's in her 30s now, so that dates me a little bit, loved Pokemon. My son, who loved Pokemon when he was 6, 7, 8, 9, and now he's 11. So I mean, it shows right there the generational gap that these characters, this franchise is. It's doing something right, and you know what? Kudos to them. I may not be the one for him, but you know what? My hat's off to you. If I was wearing a top hat, I'd be like, top hat to you. And you know what? They suckered me in on this live action film, so I can't say now that I would not watch another Pokemon thing.
Well, I think they have an opportunity here to actually kickstart their own cinematic universe. I would not. What I would do is I would not use Justice Smith as the main protagonist. I would actually maybe bring him back for like the third or fourth movie as a trainer. And I would rotate out new protagonists every year and then have them become trainers. So Justice Smith would be the first actor fulfilling that trainer um, down the road. And I think they could really do something to flesh out this universe because it did. Like you said, you were invested from the get go. I thought the first act did one. I was captivated. I was
Mhm.
captivated. There is emotional investment. The acting was fantastic. The story was great. I'll tell you what, Pikachu on the screen, he did an amazing job.
Yeah.
He sold it, and it's great.
No,
Mhm.
I agree, and again, they tapped into something. This is not a Japanese phenomenon; it's a worldwide thing. I have nieces and nephews to this day. Guys collect cards, play the video games. They know when the new game. They know at 9 and 10 years old when the new games are coming out, and they're ready to play them. And so, again, for a franchise that's almost 30 years old now overall, when you consider they started as a card playing game. Good on them for staying relevant. It's not easy to do in the
And
pop culture world.
let's face it, everybody knows what Pokemon Go is.
I had it on my
Everybody.
phone until recently. Yep.
I do not like Pokemon Go. I have coworkers that to this day play it like when I say play it, I mean they really play it. And there's a guy in Vancouver. There's a plug for Happy Console Gamer in his YouTube channel. He knows a guy that has 8 cell phones going and is playing Pokemon Go at the same time on all of his accounts. This, admittedly, was at the beginning of the craze, right when it came out,
Mhm.
but they definitely a lot of people went crazy. I've had coworkers that ran Pokemon centers like through their wireless like access points where you can download software and become like a Pokemon beacon where people in your neighborhood can do stuff. It's crazy. There's just like the IT crowd was captivated by this and they tried that, hack their cell phones and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Fun
People love it.
fact. Fun fact, my father rear-ended the car sitting in a green light because there's a Pokestop right next to in the intersection, right next to the intersection. And he rear-ended the vehicle, totaled his vehicle. And because the cop asked her, why were you sitting at the green light? She goes, it was a Pokestop.
Wow.
But
Wow.
that's all
So
I get.
apparently she's still trying to catch them all.
So was that your number 7 Trey? Or
Yes, that was my number 7. That's why I was like, we're on the same wavelength here.
So for one moment, we had a truce. So although it'll
Terrifying
probably be
moment.
broken, yeah, it'll be broken here shortly, I'm sure.
All right, Broken. What is your number 6 selection?
So this is gonna be real quick because it's Doom. So my number 6 is Doom. I had it higher on the list, so we can move on. I think.
All right. What do you got, Earl? What's your number 6?
This one is actually a little out there. Mine is Halo. Halo 4, Forward and Dawn, and then they had a few others that had a few of the direct, or they were broken up into little segment episodes that they combined into a movie.
Mhm.
Oh, the anime thing they did.
Well, Halo 4 was live action. The guy who played Colossus in X-Men 2 and 3 actually was Master Chief in that one. And then uh, I enjoyed it. It was a self-contained story that introduced the some of the ones who were in the academy going to join, and then the Covenant attacked, and then you don't even meet the Master Chief until maybe 30-40 minutes before the movie's over. But it's just it was a lower budget, but they I think they did very well with it. It was a nice little story, and it spawned several other different movies that were like that came out, and it was fun. It was enjoyable, and obviously they tried several different versions because they have one out that had Mike Colter, the guy who played Luke Cage, as the star in one, and I watched that one. I enjoyed that one too, and it's just very. Now they have a Halo series out, but I love the video game. Playing Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 4. It was a lot of fun, and being able to see that on screen, and it was thrilling. It wasn't the big screen. It wasn't a uh, massive amount of money put into the budget, but it was fun. It was fulfilling, and that's why I threw it up there. Obviously, it's probably not on anybody else's list, but it was gratifying. Going, I love this. It's Halo. It's the Covenant. Where's the Needler? I want to see the Needler. And then you get to see it, and you're like, yes. And then obviously, I think it's Paramount now that has the Halo series out, live action. And there's been love and hate about that series, but you know what? I watched the first episode, and it had Master Chief in it, and it was like, yes, you got to see, and obviously a much higher budget. But if it wasn't for Ford Under Dawn, we may never have gotten that. And just as a side note, if it wasn't for District 9, we might not have ever had Ford Under Dawn, because District 9 was a labor of love that was almost a Halo movie.
Yeah.
But that's it for me.
Broken. How do you feel about that?
So I've seen this movie like 2 or 3 times. I don't hate it. That's the best thing I say about it. It it is, and obviously I had enjoyment out of it because I watched it 3 or 4 times. Um, I I'm mystified by how well the Halo moments emerge in the movie in such a terrible way. It's like, as a film, it's garbage. It is a Halo moment to member buried to Halo moment, member buried to Halo moment, member buried.
Mm.
What they do, and that's because of budget. I
Yeah.
truly believe, because like when you're in the room where the invasion happens and everybody's trying to leave, they're escaping the base and whatnot. You have this Halo moment, and it's almost coming over a little horrorish, and from the horror genre, like, where's this thing, and you do get that feeling playing in some Halo maps where you go into a dark room, there's a cloaked guy, and he's just about to backstab you. So I thought they did some really good things with it. I thought that there was good Halo moments about it. It's just getting from act to act, I thought it was like a it was just really weird.
It was
It
almost
was
like a
like they're
teen drama.
yeah, well, that's true, but it felt to me kind of like there's microcosms of Halo strung through a plot armor line to get you to the end. And I thought they kind of took one of, so there's the Halo animated, the shorts, where they put a bunch of shorts from different styles of animation.
Mhm.
Like there's a Japanese samurai version. There's like a abstract sci-fi version. There's an anime, like standard anime version of these Halo stories all put together. There's one in particular where there's a female Spartan. People, the guy, the ODST people are basically spitting on this Spartan, so, excluding the Spartan. They find out it's this beautiful, like large woman, and she's just, a good person, and they kind of feel like mean people, when they find it out. But she eventually, takes them to the point, and she turns back and walks into danger for their sake. And in that particular short, one that kind of gave you this perspective of the Spartan. And I thought they actually did a really good job of kind of putting that idea into Forward Unto Dawn. Like, Master Chief is a good dude. He is putting himself into danger. He is going to try and get you out of, and he's not unbeatable. He just puts it on the line 150%. I'm a big Halo fan. I'm not as big as some of these Halo fights that, nothing will ever be as good as like Halo 3 or Halo 2. I never played the original at the time they were, on the Xbox. I played remakes, and I love ODST. I love Halo 4 is kind of love hate because I think it's one of the better playing games. It's just it wasn't Halo to a lot of people because of how they made each Spartan, its own type of armor. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love the sniper class. I love that game. I thought ODST was probably the best in Reach. Those two games are like gold in the way they played in the storytelling. I wasn't a big fan of 5. I do have Halo Infinite, and I have the Master Chief Collection. So big Halo fan. I do like that movie. I do think it's a bad movie though.
Yeah.
It's the reason why it just could not make my list with the other ones. But if we were doing a top 15, it could be 11, it could be 12. Um, but I will say it doesn't do it any favors if you say that this movie, without this movie, the TV show will never exist. I'm like, well, maybe we should have had this movie then, because I everything I've heard about this TV show is just like I have so much trepidation to even like ruin it because the animated shorts was so good. Like everything Halo has been enjoyable up to this point,
Mm.
and I just don't trust Paramount. What they did with Star Trek was horrible.
Well, I saw the first 30, 45 minutes of the first episode, and I got my "this is awesome" moments because the Master Chief moments, and it was like, so I haven't gotten far enough into to explore the pain that may be there. But what I saw, I was like, it was like, no, this is what I want to see. This is what I want to
Yeah,
see. And
maybe we'll
but I
have to watch it and then do a review of the series.
well, I do know that supposedly it's a alternate timeline. It's a
Oh,
different. They went Kelvin or something from what I'm hearing, and so I'm not entirely sure if that's 100% accurate, but that's what I've been told.
so they didn't
So,
want
Are
to
you
like
insinuating Halo has a multiverse?
no,
apparently
it
they do
does.
now.
Uh, so that just means they didn't want to like commit.
Yeah, they didn't want to stay true to the source material, and they wanted to have the freedom to do whatever they want to, and not have it be affected by what's already
Hey,
been world built.
if it brings people into the Halo franchise, I'm all for it. I just hope they don't see any successes they do get from, like if they're gonna lie about their subscriber count, because they all these companies do. Um, they'll, oh look, we got an influx of people. Well, they just may be wanting to watch the new Star Trek, which is the one with Captain Pike, which hasn't been terrible so far. It's just Discovery that's
Is that the Strange New World?
yes,
Star
yes,
Wars
strange,
has
yeah.
been
It's
good.
been okay. It's been okay. From what I've seen, I've watched like the first 3 episodes, I think. Um, as long as they don't extrapolate any successes they may get from this TV show to change the game towards the TV show, because we already have a changing of the guard with Bungie leaving.
Yep.
And we've only now got a game that seems like on the verge of become like this, 343 Studios being able to produce a good Halo game. So I don't want them to move this towards the direction of the TV show.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The only thing I'll say about this, we'll move on, is it's good to see that, because there's such a need in our world for content, that Halo still ranks high enough to at least be considered for that. And that's all I'll say about that. Broken, you're up. Oh no, I have to give my number.
No, you're
6.
up.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I did not make a mark there. So my number 6 won't take long. It was Uncharted, and we already talked about it. So I feel like it deserves a higher spot because I think it brings a little higher profile to video games, movies, because of its most recent success and the amount of success it had.
Yeah,
All
I think it
right.
could be a number one on some people's list.
It really just
because-
depends on how old you are and what you've experienced. It
Well-
absolutely could be.
Well,
Well,
I
I
mean,
think-
even if we were talking about pure like as movies go,
Mm.
what is the best feature film? I think Warcraft, Rampage, and Detective Pokemon, Uncharted would all have a contention for top 3. Like you could interchange them for top 3 any day of the week on if you're needling down, if all your criteria was which was the best cinematic experience in terms of was it okay to watch? Did you derive, pleasure from this movie? And was it an actually good theatrical, film? Like, was this a good film? Like, objectively good film? Because some of mine aren't higher up on my list are not objectively good films.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well,
So,
I think another question with that is, for me, I took the family, went and saw Uncharted at a drive-in.
oh
now-
wow.
Now, the question is, I would have to ask is if Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg were not the stars of this film, would I have went and saw it? I don't know. I mean, I've obviously the game and everything, but if Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg both have a loyal fan base, and I like both of them as actors, and putting them in the movie together, for me, it was a no-brainer. Uncharted, Tom Holland, Mark Wahlberg, I'm there.
So
Now, remove Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland, would I have still felt the need to go see that in theaters? I'm not sure if I would have. It depends on who they would have had come in. Warcraft, there are actors in it and everything, but Warcraft, the trailer, it had very high aspirations, and you could tell they were doing a world building. And the trailer for Warcraft made me go, I want to go see it. Yeah, we have Ragnar in it, but this intrigues me. Uncharted, if it wasn't for Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, I don't know if I would have went to the theater or the drive-in to see it.
so Nathan Fillion was supposed to be
Oh God, I would have been there. I would have been there. I love his YouTube short.
yeah. So people were trying when they were trying to get this movie produced prior to this, this decade.
Yep.
They were trying to get him to play because he would have been a perfect Drake.
I would have been there.
He fits a lot of he could have been great roles if people would have just pulled the trigger on several of those.
Yeah.
All right. So that's my number 6. Ansible, your number 5. Your top 5. Who's number 5?
So this is based off a video game from the 90s,
Ooh.
maybe 80s. This video game I played on the Super Nintendo because I did not have a big enough computer while it was its computer versions of the game were good. But I kept on I knew the lore of this game despite not having a lot of time with it. And this is Wing Commander.
Ooh.
Wow, great choice.
Wing Commander, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is a great film. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that. Not going to sit there and tell you that it's a great movie. Just not going to do it. But this movie is so fun. And like, it's just, it is almost like they put you in a submarine scenario of dire straits from the very beginning. They know not to show too much of the enemy's face. You don't really need to. They put you in a predicament, and they created Battlestar Galactica 2010 or whatever year that came out. They created that storyline. Whoever watched Wing Commander and then said, I think I'm going to make a show where we have to keep on jumping. I'm telling you that happened. I have no proof of it, but I think they stole Wing Commander. I thought this movie was great. I thought the acting was great. I thought all the actors did a really good job. This was in the era where all the DVD covers would have a bunch of people's faces on it, right?
Mhm.
Freddie Prinze Jr. does a really good job. They do an intriguing story like of how he should do math in his head, like his people, it's almost like telling like a Jewish story, like this there's these people that everybody thinks they're crazy because they believe in this God, and there's this aspect of that in this movie where his people have the ability to hold jump coordinates in their head. This
Pilgrims.
is, yeah, the Pilgrims. This movie like has true sci-fi inside of this janky 90s flick, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. I'm probably going to buy the Blu-ray when I can find it. um it's not a great movie, but it was really enjoyable for me.
Earl, that's a pretty good job selling it. What do you got?
Uh, my next one is Wing Commander.
You know,
I love,
you
you
know,
know,
it's disgusting.
yeah, because literally what he is saying is absolutely true. Now you have science fiction and you have hard science fiction, and what they depicted in that movie is more hard science fiction than science fiction, because their vessels were like submarines. We're not talking, fancy deflector seals or all this crap. It's you're in space, you're armored. It's like uh what was the one with Snyder where they were in the water? Sequest.
Equest
Yeah.
DSV, yeah.
Yeah. It was very the ideas are very similar. So as he said, same thing with Battlestar Galactica. I mean, the rapiers and the ships. It's all very similar to Wing Commander. Now, I wasn't a big uh, fan of the games. I enjoyed the flying aspect, just like I enjoyed the X-wing games flying aspect. I didn't focus on the rest of them, but I enjoyed the flying aspects. You know, uh, so the deep space, the vessels were great. I love the ships, the Gatling guns, pretty much
Yep.
at the end of the fighters, and it also broke in. Remember Rosie when she crashed, and they're like, "She's still alive. She's not. We can't leave her here. We have to shut it off, or else the rest of the ship can be destroyed." That was also done in Battlestar Galactica, and the whole the Pilgrim thing, where they had the ability because of their belief, because of it was like an internal, whether it's from God or something else. It was a little forcey, a little bit, but
Yeah, it was
and this,
transcendent. It was
yeah, and
transcendent.
I'm not going to lie here. The movie is not great, but it is filled with fun moments. And Matthew Lillard,
Yeah,
he's Scooby
absolutely.
Doo or from Scream or this. He's very energetic and he's high strung.
13 Ghosts.
Yeah, 13 Ghosts. I loved him in that. He's he's sellable for
They
what
did the
character
pause
he played.
moment. They
Yeah,
did the pause moment where they jump to light speed, or they did the jump and everybody stops in motion.
yeah,
That was a visual moment. It was like the Tyrannosaurus Rex from Jurassic Park. That's a great movie moment. I truly believe that the Wing Commander jumped to hyperspace. That was a Hollywood moment. And
yeah.
it gets buried because this movie isn't, sci-fi already has a big hill to climb, right?
Yep.
It's too thinky for a lot of people, for normies. It really, so they all they see is this like kind of like a platter of things on a plate, and they don't necessarily want to eat from the hors d'oeuvres, right? They're
Right.
like, I see it, it looks okay, but that's okay. That party was fine. But there are some moments in this movie where they start to tap into like, man, you know what? What if that would have happened? They try to keep a realism, and this is a hyper exaggerated realism, so it's kind of like an oxymoron, because they did have this like World War II, plane look to the everything,
Yeah,
but the main ship actually had a more submarine-ish look. And
yeah,
if we look to authors like David Weber, who have like the Honor Harrington universe, where their ships don't look good. They're just cylinders in space that look like hammerheads on each end, and they actually roll. To their ship, they have high gravity walls, and to protect themselves, they just roll, pitch, and yaw in 3 dimensions. And so, at some point, you have to use these insane transcendent tactics, thinking outside the box, because the doctrine of everything is in some sort of form. And Wing Commander has that. We're in this submarine type doctrine. We use fighters, and this is the doctrine of space. So it sets a framework. It's visual. It's striking, and then they have this dramatization that's going on the ship because of the pilgrims. This guy is like legit, but he's not quite. He's on buddy cred. He is using Matthew Lydiard's buddy cred to not being persecuted by the
yep.
rest of the crew. There are moments in this thing saying, what if humans did start to transcend in genetics, and the mind is starting to be unlocked, and maybe it's because we're now thinking in 3 dimensions if we have to live in space. Like, what are these things that are happening to make these people different, and what would society do if you were set in a freaking tin can in the middle of space under intense pressure? Are you going to get over your prejudices? Are you going to work with these people? Who's like, or are you going to shank them in the back? And this movie did a good job of telling that story.
And the other thing I loved about it, back to the ship, is it brings to the point, submarines. Do we have a bunch of windows in the submarines? No.
Mm-mm.
Why? Because they're weak points. Even when we send space shuttles to space, they have where they can see out of. But do we have all these other windows in the shuttle? No. Now that's Star Trek, Star Wars. Every shuttle has so many different ports, so many different windscreens, and I always hark back to Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. Why, in God's name, would you put the bridge of the ship with glass all around? I mean, obviously it's transparent steel, which is
Yeah, we're in fantasy world, right?
yeah, we're a fantasy world. But the thing is, they're windows still, but you put it on a point where you're not even on the ship. You're a tower above it. Now, if I was in these universes, my first point would be like, all right, we're going to concentrate firepower on the windows, because we take out the bridge, then they have the auxiliary bridge, inside, which is where I would personally be. You're in the midst of the ship where it's safe. And that's one of the things that I did enjoy about the submarine-esque style ships, is because they don't have a weak point of let's hit the bridge. Let's hit the bridge repeatedly, and we blow the bridge out because they got windows, and we can depressurize the ship, or at the least destroy, kill the captain and all the first rate, uh, the helmsman and all this stuff. That's what I would
Now,
do.
First
now
of
they
all,
spent all the realism. Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
Oh,
had they
okay.
intensified the forward battery as he commanded more quickly, that wouldn't have happened, now would it?
And
I'm just saying.
intensify forward firepower, sir.
Too late. Oh, yeah. See, you
Too late.
got it done
They
quicker.
did. They spent the realism budget on on the main ship. What was it? The Tiger Claw or something like that.
Yep, the Tiger Claw.
And so they spent all the realism budget there, but the fighters, they had the little wimpy windows. It's like, come on, guys, you look
Yeah.
like you're flying World War II ships. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that.
Oh,
So
and it bombed.
Yeah,
It
a
made like a
total
third of its
bomb.
budget. Yeah.
It totally bombed. Oh, but all my friends that saw it like
go watch. If you've never seen it, for anybody listening, go watch the trailer. That's all you need to do. And if that doesn't sell you on watching it, we couldn't do it, because the trailer was excellent. I mean, you have Freddie Prinze Jr. looking like a cross between what would that have been? The Phantom Menace outfit in the cockpit, and a little bit of Buck Rogers, the old TV series. So
Yeah,
go check it out. It was cool. Go check it out. I certainly recommend that. All right. Well, we're not going to wing Commander for me for number 5. I'm going to step up my game. And it's funny, since we're talking about video games, I'm going to weigh in at number 5 with Tomb Raider. Massive fan. Yes. I mean, after 17, 18 games of Tomb Raider, I mean, it's hard to tell which one they're actually adopting for a movie. We have the first 2 movies with Angelina Jolie. Let's be honest, that's the whole reason they made those 2 movies. And at least the first one was extremely successful, at least internationally and domestically too. But by the time they rolled out the second film, it was not nearly as successful. I think it had a gross domestically of, it was under 70 million. It wasn't a huge hit. And unfortunately, it didn't make the money internationally with the second release it did in the first one. So we never saw a third movie. I know that Angelina Jolie came out and said, well, we didn't want to do another one anyway. I'm pretty sure if the money would have been right, she'd have probably done another one.
There's more babies to adopt, man.
That's exactly right. I think it was a pretty good adaptation of the game. My fandom with the Tomb Raider series really picked up in the mid 2000s with Legend and Anniversary and Underworld. Absolutely love those games. I love any video game where a character just does a little nip up for absolutely no reason. I just think that's fantastic. Or uttering no whenever something doesn't work. It amuses me. I can't help it. The franchise not completely dead because in 2018 they released another movie, the kind of a reboot of the franchise, if you will. I saw that one in theaters too. It was okay. But I do understand there is a sequel in development, so we will see. But that will be my number 5 is Tomb Raider as the best video game adaptation at number 5. Ansible, what do you think?
Yeah, they're fun movies. Angelina Jolie does a very good job, and so does the new actress. Isn't she from that crazy Android movie? What was her? The new actress.
Alicia Vikander.
Alicia.
Vikander.
Is it? Yeah, something like that.
Vikander, yeah.
Vikander, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like. I think that's a better movie than the other 2. Although I think the other 2 are. I think that they're going for 2 completely different things, just like the reboot games did.
Yeah.
They were going for a different tone. I thought that the Tomb Raider movies, the first 2 with Angelina Jolie, go directly after campy. They're the best Uncharted movies with a female actress ever. They actually, I thought Uncharted captured the Tomb Raider movies in a video game. I thought Nathan Drake and the B acting in that movie, the snares was a very good adaptation of the Tomb Raider movies. So, I mean, they were fun. I thought but the better film was actually the new one. But it was brutal, man. It's kind of hard to watch, It's
just like the new video games. Those are they're not kid friendly at all.
Yes. So while you could definitely, put a teenager in front of the Tomb Raider movies for Angelina Jolie, I think the other one's a rated R movie.
Yeah,
it
was definitely a different vibe for sure.
Yeah, so I'm not even sure why they would want a second movie. Man, and in fact, I'm gonna go this far to say, having not played the Xbox One games yet. I mean, I have them. I just haven't gotten around to playing them.
Right.
I don't know why I would play an Uncharted or I'm sorry, watch a new Tomb Raider movie based on the new Tomb Raider stuff, because a lot of that is they didn't sell me a world I wanted to watch again. In the second,
Well, and you can certainly say there's an innocence to the original games and even the original 2 movies. It's more of, hey, come along for the ride, some fantasy. The reboot of the franchise really became more, hey, let's see how far we can. I'll be careful how I say this. What we can do to an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old young lady. How much can we put her through? It oftentimes comes across that way in some of the cut scenes that they do. What do you think, Earl?
Well, Lara Croft was on my list until a last minute cut. And so I enjoyed the first two. Angelina Jolie certainly looked and acted the part. She had, that kind of thing going for
Mhm.
her. I enjoyed it. Daniel Craig in the first one was a lot of
Mhm.
fun, and that was the thing is they were fun. Now the comparison between the first Lara Croft Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie and the second one, the reboot, I mean, is the fact that everything now has to be dark and gritty and Batman-esque. They're giving everything the Batman, as we use this term a lot. The Batman, the turn.
I'm Lara Croft.
Right, exactly.
I can almost hear that though. I'm Lara Croft.
Yeah.
But I mean, I enjoyed it. Obviously, the first one made a reasonable amount of money. The second one had a smaller returns, and the reboot that came out a couple of years ago more than doubled. I think we made like 2.5 times what the budget was, and so I enjoyed that one too. A completely different film, one that you different age bracket as well. But there's also there's a big difference between what kids were like 20 years ago and what kids are exposed to nowadays. There's a bit of a, a gap there.
A leap.
And,
An
I'm not.
escalation.
Yeah, I'm not. That's all I'm going to say on that particular aspect. But it was on my list, but it got cut at the last minute. I enjoyed both of them. They're two completely different machines and animals, but I enjoyed them both for what they were. It was, but the first one had that Uncharted Indiana Jones feel, and I will throw a shout out to Bat in the Sun Productions on YouTube. They do a lot of like the Flash versus Quicksilver, things like that. They had a short that was a Nathan Drake versus Lara Croft. It was fun. It compared the two as contemporary Indiana Jones, and that's what they are. So they're a lot of fun. They just got cut at the last minute off my list, but
They got cut from my list too, by the way. I moved Warcraft up above them.
Okay. Well, then, Ansible, who is your number 4?
My number 4 is the entire series underneath this and the new movie that has nothing to do with the previous, and that is Resident Evil. I love I love every single Mila Jovovich Resident Evil movie, and the first one is actually really good. To me, is really good. The second one is not a good movie at all.
Yeah.
But it does actually some things absolutely fantastic. And that is it brings in the Umbrella Corp guys, the people who are working for them, that these were memes in the video games. Like you could unlock playing one of them as the Umbrella operative. They even made a whole game. I think Raccoon City was based around playing these characters. Um, so I thought that not only bringing them in and seeing how that the company would absolutely backstab him and leave them for dead in a minute, they brought in Nemesis, which I'm not a big fan of Resident Evil 3. My expectations were way too high for that game. I know it's the favorite on a lot of them, but I played the first one on the PlayStation. I played that game with all of its tank controls and all of its tank control glory. I've stopped about when you get to the Shark Tank. I couldn't take that game anymore. It was actually really starting to break my calm. It was actually really scary. Then I got Resident Evil 2, and I was just like, I refuse to let the series, because I love zombie movies. I was watching a lot of zombie movies, like the original Dawn of the Dead, the 75 or 76 version. I was into zombies before zombies were cool. I played Resident Evil 2 all the way through, beat that game, had the time of my life playing that game. Resident Evil 3 was the absolute backstab betrayal of my expectations because I wanted a new game. And they told Resident Evil 2 from a different perspective. And I did not appreciate that. So I was just like, nope, this isn't for me. Oh, I've lessened on that view because that's a very greedy view. Because other people do like it, and I've heard compelling arguments that have swayed me to at least appreciate the game for what it did. But I thought that the second Resident Evil movie did actually bring in the Resident Evil 3 Nemesis like tropes.
Right.
They brought them to the cinematic universe. I don't think that the pacing was right in the movie, and the camera seemed off. Felt like it was it has that 120 hertz look without it being 120 hertz. Like they forgot, it's got the soap opera look and feel to it, and I didn't like that. And I guess that was the cameras they used. But I love all the Resident Evils after that, and I know that they're just popcorn flicks, and they try and tell a Resident Evil adjacent story. I eat them up. I love them. I've watched them probably 5 or 10 times each. You know, and the new movie that came out, I actually didn't hate that movie. I was pleasantly surprised. And for a rated R movie, I don't remember them cussing too much because I'm really not into them just using cuss words to fill in the lack of good dialogue, which a lot of movies with rated R's do. Um, so I actually liked that movie. It was actually cool. Felt a little bit more like State of Decay with a Resident Evil like pack like DLC, if you will. It did not feel like a Resident Evil movie until probably the third act, but it felt like a State of Decay movie. But they did bring some like member berries from like Resident Evil 2 in and all that, so I appreciated it. So that is my number 4.
That's a really solid pick. Earl, what do you have to say?
I'm 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 just not going to read my list anymore. I mean, I'm just going to let him continue, and I'll just agree with. You are in IT, so have you hacked me? No.
Good question.
No.
Yeah. So my number 4 is Resident Evil. I watched a lot of the games being played. I didn't start playing until around 4 or 5. At that point, I started playing them afterwards. Those, and so I enjoyed the games, pop scares, and I enjoyed the co-op mode. Was one of the points that helped sucker me into playing those.
Oh, that's in
And-
5, right?
Yep, and with Chris, I believe, was in
Mhm.
5. Yeah, and I can't remember her name, who was also the other one. I think she had a bow and arrow to start
Yep.
off. Either way, the first Resident Evil, Mila Jovovich was in it, obviously, and she became the character Alice, and
Yep.
so
That is all actually good Resident Evil lore. It's not 1-to-1, but Resident Evil Code Veronica brought in the the not the zombie, because there's a lot of pharmaceutical, right?
Yeah.
In the games. You think this game is about, or this series in the video games is about, biochemical modern day warfare, and what you start to find out as you get into 4 and 5 and 6. But Code Veronica actually did it before 4, is that they're deriving their chemicals from these primordial things. And there is a part in Code Veronica where you find out like there's out like the Alice of this world, that actually has these psionic powers, and some of the storytelling there. So the Alice character, as it's going through the movies, I don't think a lot of people realize that they're actually tipping on some actual fundamental Resident Evil storylines. It just doesn't kind of fit with the whole like guns and ammo, but this is actually a thing in the series.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Well, I really, the first one was also it was a zombie film. That's what it
Yep.
was. It was a
Yep.
zombie film, and I liked the small group that came in. I also get a shout out for Gene Turpoy was great in it. It was a twist that you're like, wait, what?
Hmm.
You eventually saw it coming, but the first one, then the second one that came out was completely it was different than the first one, and I didn't really care much for the Nemesis one, but you get Omar Epps in there, and he's always fun. Oded Fair, I'm a big fan of his, as what you had mentioned, one of the Umbrella uh, Black Black Ops group that dropped in, and and then each one had different characters and actresses and actors that came in and portrayed them. That like Chris Ringfield, he was Captain Cold off of Flash. I can't remember his name. Help me out here.
Oh yeah, yeah. Gosh, he was also in that prison show, right?
Prison Break. Yeah, his name is ah Wentworth Miller. That's what it is. Wentworth Miller. Uh, I'm a fan of his as well. So there are a lot of uh, talent that they hired that made me go, okay, I'll watch the next one. You got me suckered in. So I watched all of them, but I did not watch the last one. The last one of the Alice ones. I have yet to see that, and I've just postponed it, and I don't have a reason why. But I think Resident Evil helped keep the zombie craze alive because they dropped in every couple of years and reinvigorated. It's a horror esque series with different backdrops, backgrounds, and I kept checking it out. I kept plugging in and going, okay, I gotta watch this one. I gotta watch this one. And then the new one dropped. That was a reboot, Return to Raccoon City. I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna watch it. Then I found out Robbie Amell was in it. I was like, now I gotta watch it. And I went into it with having too high of expectations because I was disappointed. But then I ended up being asked to watch it with somebody. I was like, okay, I'll watch it. I know what happens. And on the second viewing, I'm like, okay, it's not as bad as I thought because I had high expectations. I was wanting to be this wonderful, explosive, mind altering thing for some reason, and so I was disappointed because it didn't meet the high expectations I had. But when I watched it the second time, I was like, okay, I like it. I mean, it's
I
not
had
a great film, but
I had zero expectations for it, so I was
eh,
pleasantly surprised. It was like Rogue One.
okay, yeah. Well, I was overly hopeful, and I was anticipating like, okay, we rebooted it, let's get to it, and then I was like, no,
I
but
hear they're making a TV show on Netflix about it or
Yeah, it's
something.
supposed to come out, I believe, next month.
I
which
have
is
no faith for it.
well,
Very faithful.
it's not supposed to be in the same timeline
Right.
as the Return of the Raccoon City. They're two different Resident Evil projects, so
Yeah. Hmm.
I'll
All
have
right.
no hope.
Well, y'all aren't going to believe this, but my number 4 is Resident Evil as well.
We've done it
Wow.
So
twice.
it's a clean sweep. So we had Pokemon number 7. We have Resident Evil number 4. I won't belabor the point. Let's move on.
Well,
Uh,
I would just like to say one thing.
yeah.
So one of the most favorite Resident Evils is 4, and the fact that we got it all on 4 is kind of amazing.
I'm just
It is.
saying.
It is. They're remaking 4 as well.
Are they
Yeah.
really?
So yes, and it looks absolutely
It's
amazing.
like remastering it. Yeah.
We'll have to play it together because I'm not into the horror stuff as much as I was in the
It's
past.
good to see that we were in sync on number 4. I like that. At least we weren't the Backstreet Boys. Okay. Ansible, we need number 3. We've made it to the final 3.
So it's an iconic video game. It shares its name with the iconic video game.
No.
I recently watched it this weekend.
Okay.
It has displaced it displaced Tomb Raider.
Ooh.
The fact that Tomb Raider didn't make it on my list is just how, and I separated these. This one is not a series. This is the standalone movie at number 3. Um, and it is Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Mm.
I I love this movie. I think it hits on all notes. It's a continuation. You have to watch the first one. It's a direct continuation of the first movie. But they really they really know what the fans of the first movie wanted, and the first movie did really good in the box office, right? And it definitely hit it with fans. This movie has no absolutely no reason to be this good. This is just like I put it on the same level as Detective Pikachu, and had I not wanted Doom, Wing Commander and Resident Evil, those are more mean more to me than having this one good movie. Detective Pikachu would have been at odds with Sonic the Hedgehog 2. These movies do not deserve. At least the companies have done so much wrong with these, things. And for me, Pikachu, the Pokemon games have just been too much the same over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And then Sega has absolutely made so many garbage Sonic games since like the Dreamcast. Sonic '06 is a terrible game by every metric. You can like it, but it's still a terrible game. And they haven't really done much to make it. So they haven't done a lot with this series, and they've had so many flops. This movie does not deserve its source material. Sometimes it is a family friendly movie. It tells a family centric story. It hits it just continues on the good feels of the first movie. It continues on, and I tell you what, Idris Elba as Knuckles,
Mhm.
Knuckles is an idiot. Okay, so you have Idris Elba playing an idiot, like a straight up naive idiot warrior, and every moment he's on screen, he steals it. And that's hard to say because Sonic and Tails are stealing it. And the people they got, the people they got, the humans in this, do such a wonderful job of just providing a framework for the Sonic movie. I absolutely loved it. It's predictable. You're not gonna go in and it's not gonna hold any suspense. But man, is it just a good time movie? And I'll leave it at that. And it also, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is one of the best 16-bit video games ever made. So
Truth. A lot of truth in that. All right, Earl, what do you got?
Well, I actually just watched Sonic the Hedgehog 2 last night with my two youngest. They'd already seen it. It's been on in the house, and they've watched it, and I did not because I didn't want to watch it. So I was like, well, I should watch it so I can know if I should put this on the list. Plus, it's still in theaters, so I'm writing a film review for it for the magazine I work for. And so I watched it, and I have to agree with Broken here. I watched I watched the second one first, and then I watched the first one right after that. And so the first one obviously is diminished somewhat if you watch it in reverse because the budget and everything. Well, the second one, it's family friendly. It's upbeat. It's fun.
happy.
It's yeah. I mean, and it's there are some obviously you know what's coming in some of the scenes, and you know what's eventually going to happen. But it's fun, and I did not expect to have as much fun watching Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And what he said about Idris Elba, who I love as an actor, uh, playing Knuckles. I have won the base of ball. Now ice cream. They have sprinkles. I mean, you can't make this up. Why am I laughing at a stupid character voiced by one of the strongest male actors of right
Of
now?
of 20 years. Like
Yeah,
he
I
he
mean,
he's the European Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
yeah, I mean, he should be James Bond. He should have
Yeah.
been James Bond. But either way, I mean, he's almost everything he's in. I'm like, I have to watch it. I've got to watch it because he's in it, and I have not been disappointed yet. I used to watch Luther, the TV show that he was in
Oh
on
yeah, that was
BBC.
pretty good. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, he steals the show, and I think it's very telling that it's the highest grossing video game film in the United States. Period. It overthrew the previous holder, which was Sonic the Hedgehog 1.
Yep.
And
And this the movie does gosh, what was I gonna say? There's an aspect of the movie where you're like, wait a minute, this this movie has everything, right? This movie does. Yeah, oh, my uncle. My uncle is a very he does if you even talk wrestling or talk cartoons, he will immediately just like say, "Hey, he'll change the subject." This is not his thing. Hates it. And he does not watch anime. He will not watch any 3D, movie, right? I think
Mhm.
he may have watched iRobot or Wally, but typically he won't watch anything like that. For him to be laughing out loud in both Sonic movies tells you how good this movie is. My Uncle Donald loved Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And when I say laughing, so he's hard of hearing, and I got the speaker that raises up the voice range. He could
Mhm.
actually hear this movie and hear the dialogue in its full glory. And when he's laughing at this, he's not into video games, he's not into cartoons, he's not into 3D stuff, and he's enjoying every aspect of this movie. And it's a family movie.
Yeah.
Gives Sonic hit it out the park too.
And it's not just the CGI. It's James Marsden.
Oh
I'm,
yeah,
I'm a fan of his. I liked him even when he was cast as Cyclops back in X-Men. But he was great in
that's
it.
who
And
that was.
yep, yep.
That's who that was. I was
But
trying. I thought he would look like for a minute there. I thought he looked like Captain Jack from Torchwood. I was like,
uh,
is that? It's like, is that him? Who is this guy?
yep. And but the other one, I have to give it to Jim Carrey.
Oh,
I mean, you know, he has that energy that you can't that I've very few actors or actresses have been able to capture. I mean, very few. Whether it's in The Mask or it's Ventura or the Riddler, and and here he comes in this, and
the
he
best part of
he
the movie.
he
He's the
just
best part of the movie.
I don't know. I love Idris Elba's just his deadpanning stuff is just great, but but a very I mean it was just it's a very good meshing, and you can't go wrong. It's very clean and family friendly and fun, and if you like the video games, you'll be glad to hear that Colleen O'Shaughnessy returns as the voice of Tails for those
So
that are interested.
I will say that there's one part of the movie that did leave me wanting more, and that is actually the FBI agent and the sister-in-law.
Tomorrow
When
more.
because yeah, she is in the first movie an annoying character, and she doesn't do herself the character doesn't do any favors at when she's reintroduced into this plot,
Yeah.
but she actually steals my heart away in in her story arc, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, man,
You be
and
she
I
becomes a
want
sympathetic.
more. Yeah, she
Yeah.
becomes and that
And
is
then
exactly
then she
that's a
changes to something more. Yeah.
yeah, she changes into something more, but that's a testament to the writers. They I'd say I thought that she was the worst part of the first movie, and almost like too much.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they thought that or if they had her story arc already written, but I really thought that whatever they did, they are geniuses
Oh
because
yeah.
they turned an absolute unredeemable character and made her steal every scene that she was in the
Yeah. She
second
had
movie.
three different character alterations in this arc that were completely different and yet completely believable, and you were invested in
You
this
feel that she's a
side
part
character.
of the family in
Yeah.
at this point. She's a part of the family.
So I'll just throw in my 2 cents here. You all talked about the family stuff. Sonic the Hedgehog at its heart was nothing but good, clean, silly, challenging fun. You could sit down with your kids in front of you. You didn't have to worry about anything. You would see anything you would experience other than losing all your rings when you touch something. Very
Oh, I hated
frustrating.
that.
Very frustrating. And I'm glad to see that the writers, the producers, when the fan base spoke out about, hey, this is not the design we wanted in the first movie, they didn't get angry about it and thumb their nose and say, we're the content creators, shut up, you'll like what we give you. They were like, we hear you. And that's smart because you know what? If the fan base hears them hears themselves be heard, they'll come out and support the movie. So hats off to the producers for doing that. And I think that's a big part of why you've seen 1 and 2 be so successful, because I think the fans truly feel invested in the
Has that
movie.
ever happened before where
I don't think
where
so.
where they listened to what the fans had to say after everything was done? They dropped another $5 million in 4 months of pushing it back.
Yep.
I'm not sure. Maybe a Star Wars something somewhere has happened with that, but not as vocal because the Sonic the Hedgehog fans and Pete Door's game room, he's a huge Sonic fan. Like this dude is Sonic, like his game room is all Sonic all the time. And I know that he's talked about some of the fandom and they get crazy. There's like some fan like music party that they had and they got up on stage and they rioted. I mean, they're crazy, man. And Sonic the Hedgehog movie to take in that fan complaint of how he looked and to rework it, that they nailed it.
And
All you gotta do is watch
go
that
ahead.
trailer side by side on YouTube, and you can see the first design and the second design, and even the music choice in the trailer completely different.
Yeah.
And one other thing to throw in there is it's really helped Paramount Plus's streaming numbers and driving subscriptions. It's not just Yellowstone in 1883, for different reasons why they're popular. Certainly not family friendly, but it's helped them build something. And they're on their way. So I guess good on Paramount. Earl, I might have made a mistake. Did you give us your number 3?
Um,
I
let
don't
me
see
look.
it.
I have my list up. Hold on, I have to pull it back up.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I did not give my number 3. My number 3, In the Name of the King.
Okay.
All right.
I-
There you go.
I love that movie. I actually I bought the movie when I was on I went on a trip to Orlando and bought the movie, watched it in the hotel room, and I absolutely loved it. I bought it because Jason Statham was in it with Lily Sobieski, John Rhys Davies, who's a classic, Ray Liotta, Ron Perlman, and so they had enough names in it that I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I pulled the trigger, bought it, watched it, absolutely loved it. Now it was a bomb, and but I'm like, it was fun. It was it was a lot of fun. Now Matthew Lillard is also in it, and so is Christina Loken, who ends up playing Terminator in Terminator 3. We don't talk about that one, but either way, it was fun. It was Burt Reynolds as the king.
There you go.
I can't forget Burt Reynolds. He that was it was fun. It was I never really played much. I mean, I'd never played Dungeons and Dragons or Dungeon Seeds or any of them, but I'd seen so many people playing them before, and so even though it was In the Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege tale, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot, and I'm so glad I did, and I will still turn it on and watch it because it's just classic scene.
Just classic. Well
Yeah.
said. Broken, what do you have for us?
So I've never played the video games. Actually I might have played Dungeon Siege 3 for like all of 15 minutes. I was gonna actually play this game with my buddy here when I moved up here into Alabama. We were gonna actually play it online together, I believe, and it just never got. We never could get the time to do it because he was courting his current wife, and so I never played the video.
Mhm.
But I will tell you this: I love that movie. I've seen it twice, I believe, maybe 3 times. I'm a Jason Statham fan. I thought the movie was serviceable. It tells a good story. It's not gonna blow the doors off of any like fantasy, story arc, but for what it does it well. It's better than the Dungeons and Dragons first movie, and I like that. So how can so it's not a good movie, but I enjoyed it because Tom Baker, hello. It's like for 5 seconds of glorious you get Tom Baker acting. Um but and it's better than that movie in every single way. And it's better than Aragon. It's better than a lot of the other, movies that tried to come out in this time period. So I think it did a pretty good job. I wanted it to be on my list, but my list is just too packed. And as we're going and talking about these things, and you have these things that I actually enjoy on your list, but they're not on mine. I think it's safe to say that there's more than 10 movies that are enjoyable video game movies. I know that it's the stigma of, oh, these are terrible films, but you know what? I would put a lot of these movies over the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're in a good position with video game movies.
I think so. One thing or two things I'll throw out at you. Number one, Ray Liotta was in that movie,
Yeah,
and he just passed away
he was the bad
recently.
guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. No.
Yeah.
In the middle of
Fantastic
filming
actor.
another film.
Yep. Ron Perlman obviously was in the first two. They did make two direct sequels. The number two had Dolph Lundgren in it. I'll watch anything with
Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren in it just because when Ivan Drago tells you to watch, you watch.
I
Okay?
watched it. It was
And
I
also,
have not seen them.
one day we'll get to talk about his turn as the Punisher and why there's so much good in there and why it's so forgotten.
Oh yeah, it's a good movie.
And they also made number three. That did not have Jason Statham in that one. It was Dominic Purcell, better known from Prison Break and being on Legends of Tomorrow. Mick Roy on or Heat Wave, I guess.
Yeah.
On Legends of Tomorrow.
or his pen name.
We're not going into that. You can stop right now. I know we say it's Midnight Magic Musings. It's literally past midnight. And this is what you get after a certain time when we turn into pumpkins. But
well, and these are you bowl movies, right? So these are actually at the top of what he's done in terms of good movies.
it's true.
He does he does a lot of I mean, he did Rampage, right? The actual, not the other movie, but
Yeah.
another movie,
Right.
another video game based on that. And he did the Postal movies, Far Cry movies, Alone in the Dark movies. And I think he actually, with at least with the first one, he actually hit it. He did a good job.
I agree. All right. Well, I'll throw out my number three, and I'm going to step back real quickly because this is a stun grenade waiting to happen. My number three video game turned into a movie, Street Fighter. Oh, I knew that was coming. I knew there would be some consternation from that particular location. I am in an undisclosed location in another state where I am secure at the moment. Street Fighter 2
Yeah.
really the inspiration for the Street Fighter movie. So many things. We could take a whole show just to talk about this movie and the glory that it was, and maybe was not too. Jean-Claude Van Damme playing the role of Colonel Guile. Literally eating up like a quarter of the budget with his salary reported to be about 8 million, and the budget was like 36 million. So between him and Raul Julia, who would play M. Bison, ate up the majority of their casting budget. So that's why you had so many actors and actresses no one had ever heard of, because they didn't have any money to hire anyone else. Setting that aside, we got the lovely and talented Ming-Na Wen as Chun-Li. Thumbs up there, guys. Classic. Love her very much and all the work she does. It was a loose adaptation, shall we say, of the video.
Wow.
They crammed a lot.
Adaptation, he says.
Yeah, they crammed a lot of the Street Fighter characters in. I mean, you've got T-Hawk in it, for goodness sake. Thunderhawk to his friend. But you know what? I enjoyed the video game. I'm happy to say I saw the movie in theaters. I'm not ashamed to admit that. It was a hit. boys and girls. It actually did very, very well. Eventually, they would launch a reboot based on Chun-Li. That one, not a
Doesn't
commercial.
exist.
That not a commercial success at all. Christian, is it Kruk or Kruk?
Crook, yeah.
Yes, from Smallville, Lana Lang.
Yep. And?
Was Chun-Li there, and so in spite of that fact, it still was not a success.
Neil McDonough.
That's true.
And Chris Klein.
Yep, a big Neil McDonough fan. Love me some Damien Dark from the Arrowverse and Walking Tall as well.
And Chris Klein is also from The Flash.
Yep, that is correct. So that's my number 3 on the list. I love the video game series, and I was just happy that there is a movie loosely based on. I couldn't put Double Dragon in here at number 3, although I wanted to.
Come on, Mark Dasco. Come on.
I was just gonna say that Street Fighter is the, Final Fight. I'm sorry. Double Dragon is the Taito version of the Street Fighter movie. They are equally as absurd as each other in every shape or form, and at least the Street Fighter movie had the video game called Street Fighter the movie made, which was a Mortal Kombat ripoff. Some love it, some hate it. So let me give you I may be the biggest Street Fighter fan you'll ever meet. At least you personally.
Okay.
I'm sitting next to 4 arcade sticks with Street Fighter propaganda on them. I love Street Fighter. I've been playing it since I called Nintendo hotline before Street Fighter came out so I could learn the moves before the game ever released. When it was 1-800 number.
Wow.
And making sure that this character was going to be in, and I would ask the Nintendo hotline people. I was that in tune. I played the Nintendo game, the Super Nintendo version. I have fond memories of that. I've played Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I've played the Sega Genesis, basically Champion editions and whatnot, all the way through the new stuff. Street Fighter 4. There's a new one coming out. I love Street Fighter. I do not love this movie. I mean, for the memes, I could put it on a list. It's just not going to be on this list.
Sure.
I understand it is in itself a meme because it's a terrible movie, objectively on every count, and that's actually what it has going for it. It is like, and it's one of Julia's last movies.
Yep, he died something like 2 months later. Yeah.
So it is. I would say his M. Bison isn't unlikable. I thought it was very much of what's that movie that Johnny Depp's in with the vampires, the Dark Shadows.
Yeah.
His because Julia played in the Addams Family, right?
Right.
Yep.
So I thought that his M. Bison was somewhere between the Father Adam and the guy Johnny Depp would play in Dark Shadow. It was just like surreal, absurd. What would a guy with superpowers want or trying and a lot of money and power? I thought he was enjoyable. The movie is what it is. It's kind of like a B movie with an A-team kind of plot with a Street Fighter, skin suits on.
If only we had rolled Street Fighter into Bloodsport, maybe we would have had something. In an alternate timeline, there was such a
I think
crossover.
there's just so much missed opportunity with that movie, mishandling.
Well,
I mean, we're lucky we got a movie out of it.
Sure. Well, Capcom, look, I lay this squarely at their feet. They had to approve everything. They were not going to allow any flexibility. And so I mean, blame. They made money. Everybody's happy, but I would just say that a lot of that is their, I don't want to say meddling, but since that's the only word I can come up with, we're going to go with meddling.
No, I think that's absolutely fair to say.
And,
And they
and
built a
one
video
day,
game off of it.
yeah, one day, Ansible, I want to have you back on to talk about the Masters of the Universe movie from the 80s and
Oh, I love
Oh,
that movie.
Tell-
Frank Villa, Dolph Lundgren.
Mattel's meddling that really messed that movie over.
That movie
I
is
think-
perfect in every way. So you cannot talk. You cannot hold an opinion other than mine about that movie. Okay?
I have learned that tonight. Yes, you and
Yes.
the Earl have the opinions. I need to get on board with what you are.
Yes, I love that movie and everything about it.
So
It's like the Critters movie.
it's literally like, wait, this is meat on a bone. It
Oh,
tastes
yeah.
good.
Well, they're all vegans in Eternia, man.
Apparently so.
That's how Dolph buffed up.
But the good news is, and I promise we'll get off of it, we got to see a very early Tom Paris, Robert Duncan McNeil,
Hey,
in
yeah,
that
you did.
movie from
And-
Voyager.
And wasn't it Courtney Cox?
Yep.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So, and those two were lovers in that movie, and they had to play the space saxophone. But
Oh,
see,
I forgot about that. Yes.
But see, Dolph Lundgren actually had to get to all the vegetables by eating the cow. That's how he got muscles.
With the build he had, he can eat whatever he wants, and don't stand in one place. He
I-
might get
I-
you too.
Just foreshadowing for that episode. I love that
Absolutely.
movie.
All right. Well, we're down to our final two. So, Ansible, I need your number two.
My number two is dun 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 Mortal Kombat. Come on, man. How could this not be on a list?
Yes.
Mortal
finally.
Kombat. This movie should be the number one. Should be the number one. Should be the number one. This movie had the soundtrack to back up everything. This movie was transcendent. This movie was actually a good fighting film. There's not a lot of great fighting in it. It's not Enter the Dragon. It's not like Drunken Master. It's not, Iron Monkey. It's none of these things. And it still worked. Like the action still worked. Like I will tell you this, man. When I walked into the theater with my buddy Arnold back in the day, and I watched this movie, it was magical because it felt like they captured. Now we have to bring this back to the video game, right?
Yeah.
The video game, they wanted something different, and it was running on different hardware. So it didn't have the Capcom, hardware that could run the Street Fighter, engines and whatnot. And so they were going for more. They actually had people digitized to bring these moves into the game. So they were trying to transcend video games at the time of what that was, and they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. It was a phenomenon. They had the blood. They had everything. The market. It was so good. And the reason why I think it translated into Mortal Kombat the film, like what they did was capture just the people walking around. You believe the characters. These were the digital to come to life. The story, you already knew it in your head. They didn't have to go too far. And I mean, they had the Highlander as Raiden. Come on, man.
Christopher Lambert.
He was in every movie at the time, it seemed. And just why not dye your hair white and come on in?
Wow.
The story that they actually told between the little budding love story between Johnny Cage and Sonya was actually really well done in the time they had with what words that they could present on the table. It's like this male chauvinist or this Hollywood chauvinist is getting stone cold stared down like you are nothing to me. I've been places that would blow your mind. That's the way she looked at him. With her acting, she shot him down on every level, and he had to repent to her at every level going forward in that movie to actually get her sympathy. That in itself, that I just told you a story that probably had like maybe 10 seconds of on-screen time. I've spent more words talking about it than they did it, and it conveyed on screen. They did things, and you know what? The bad guy in that, I can't remember, was Shao. Oh gosh,
Sean.
yeah, he did. No, just the wizard guy. He did a great job. First of all, he's great in every movie that he's in, but that movie with the background music, they hit it. They just hit a home run. It still holds up to this day. I watched it not too long ago. Um, the whole thing, with the going in. Now the second movie, wasn't so great. But when they went into the other world, you got to see like Reptile and all that. By the way, that moment with Reptile, that was CGI at its greatest back then.
Yeah.
That was like amazing. So there were things in this movie that I really appreciated. I really liked it. The touching story of releasing the souls back in. It actually had a little like Western, moments in there. I was like, they really just made me believe that this fighting underworld actually worked. And the other movie that did that was Enter the Dragon, because I was like, man, you know what? The camera angles that they did in Enter the Dragon, the world building they did, get everybody onto the boat itself, made me believe that in the 70s had that realistic look in the camera lens that it's not been replicated since. Like the 70s movies look like they were real. Like you were there, that you could smell the salt in the air. And Enter the Dragon really did that for me. And I thought they captured those moments pretty well in this film, being that the budget and the actors were, probably never thought of themselves as ever being in a video game. So
No,
I'll leave
and
it there. I've gushed enough.
no, that's okay. Go ahead, Earl. What do you got?
What about James Remar as Lord Raiden in Annihilation?
I mean, if you're gonna switch him out, I like him.
I am not putting this as a series in my in my list. This is just
Notes
I
will
did watch
reflect.
I
Yes.
did watch the new HBO. It was on HBO. I actually enjoyed that movie, the new one.
Mhm.
So, but that's not on my list. But
So I'll just jump in here and say, I think that Ansible broke it down very well, no pun intended. You believe that this video game was happening in quote unquote the real world, and they didn't have to give you a lot of exposition to let you understand. I think that level of simplicity, kind of like Sonic, kind of like some of these others that are on the list, simple, still works. You don't have to be uber complicated and have 15 different swerves in a movie and then bring it all the way back around to the end. How many TV shows do we see with that where, oh, we'll just keep swerving the audience to the very last moment? And here's the whole point of it. You didn't need to mentally mess with me. You could have just given me a straightforward story. Sometimes, and Earl, you mentioned this, and so did Ansible. Sometimes you can figure out 5-10 minutes in what the whole point of it's going to be, but there can still be satisfaction in seeing it play out, even though you know where it's going, seeing how well it plays out, just being taken on a ride. I like fantasy, and I feel like sometimes in our movies, we're not giving people the chance to kind of have escapism. And I think Mortal Kombat as a movie, absolute escapism and a whole lot of fun. Because honestly, if you're fighting a dude with 6 arms, you absolutely should do a split and knock him right somewhere. Absolutely. Why not? He broke your sunglasses, for goodness sake.
yeah, I mean, just remember, just like in Monster Squad, Werewolf got nards.
You know what?
He was just a shaved werewolf, man.
Do what you got to do to survive. Go ahead, Earl. Do you have anything you wanted to add to Mortal Kombat?
No.
All right. Well, then what is your number 2?
It has begun.
Wow.
Love it.
Okay. I'll touch on a few things that we alluded to. First of all, Lyndon Aspey, love him as Johnny Cage. He's great. And I did like the interaction between him and Sonya Blade. Kano, perfect cast, and you were cheering for him to get his neck snapped. Oh, you want a break?
World.
Yeah,
man, actually
rest
World
in
Series
rest in
did it?
yeah, rest
Yeah.
in peace there to that guy, man. 'Cause-
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did. Yeah, he died just a couple years after that.
Yeah.
After a run on, I think it was Jag was his last acting gig.
Yeah, I think
he had
so.
a heart attack, right? Or heart problems.
I believe some of that might have been self-inflicted, if I remember correctly.
I can neither
Allegedly.
confirm nor deny.
Allegedly, I think that's
Allegedly.
what the story was.
But when you saw Sub-Zero and Scorpion come on for the first time, you were like, "Oh, come on, this is awesome!" And the ice effects, and then get over here. You were like, "Yes!"
Yep.
When he
Uh,
brought him into his world, that was
Oh, when
Yes,
he kicked them,
yes.
they went. "Zzz."
yep.
I mean, and that was probably one of the best martial art scenes for Lyndon Aspie was during the Scorpion the fight. Poor Charles Barkley died in that movie. I don't remember the guy's name. He looks like Charles Barkley, the basketball
Yeah.
player. Yeah,
Yep.
he got his soul
Yeah.
sucked out.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
same
went off
song.
quick.
But you were introduced to this cast, and really quickly. I mean, Luke King, you were introduced a little bit. A little bit slower, but you were introduced to these, and the actors portrayed them in a very likable manner, so that you immediately was like, okay, he's the cocky one. I do want him to get smacked a few times, but the chick is doing it good enough so he can kick butt. The chick is, she's small, but she's spunky. I like her. And then this guy, he's obviously the hero. And then Christopher Lambert going, ha, ha, ha. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the whole thing. It was beautiful for the time, 1995. Great special effects, and even now, there's a few. It's like yeah, it could have been done better. But guess what? I watch B and C flicks, science fiction that have worse special effects today.
Yep. I mean, Blake
And,
Seven from the '70s, from the BBC,
Yep.
or the '80s. Yeah, Blake Seven's got some really terrible for today, but I watched that and was captivated as a teen, or no, actually, I was like 8 years old watching that.
Yeah, and let's face it, $20 million budget, 122 million box office.
Yeah,
That's
it was a hit.
That's a hit, and it spawned Annihilation, which we don't talk about, and a TV series
Yes.
that
I heard the
we
TV
watched.
series wasn't bad, but
It wasn't
I know
bad.
It wasn't bad at all. They actually tied it, if I remember right, correct me, Earl, into was that the one that aired after WCW Nitro
Yep,
on
and it
TNT
had,
back in the day?
and it had Zero and Kun Lao and
Which,
Yeah,
for
we
those
didn't
not
know.
familiar, Kung Lao gets referenced in the final fight with Liu Kang. He mentions himself as being a descendant
Yep.
of Kung Lao. So they
and they
kind of
actually
brought that
they had the
forward.
character. Yeah, they
Yeah.
had the character in the reboot that they did. You're introduced to him briefly, I think, and but no, I think it holds up pretty well as a video game adaptation that does great.
So,
yeah,
so
and
two
the
things.
soundtrack is amazing.
It is really good.
Oh
actually.
yeah,
It just makes the movie so much better than it already is. Two things I'll throw out there. Number one is the actors and actresses seem to get it.
Mhm.
They took it seriously, but not so seriously.
they had fun
They,
with it.
yes, they found that place where I can enjoy hey, I'm getting paid to do this. Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do this. And the other thing I would simply say is that the scorpion shooting the thing out of his hand when the beak hits, loved it, because I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want to see. And the other thing is I can never drive by a grove without seeing that fight play out. I don't care what part of the country I'm driving in, Broken. If I see a grove, I look at it, and that's where my mind goes every single time, because
Wow.
it was just perfect. Just
Well,
perfect.
Down here in Florida, you'll be driving along the countryside, and next thing you know, you see the pine trees in lines.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm just expecting to see somebody do a cartwheel from behind a tree, and nope, keep driving. Not
Gotta
today.
catch me first. Yeah. All
So what is
right.
yours?
Well, you all did an outstanding job selecting Mortal Kombat as your number 2. I valued something a little higher than you all did. I'm going to take as the number 2 Sonic the Hedgehog.
The
And
first or second?
I'm going to take the first one,
Okay.
because if the first one isn't a hit, there is no second. So I lay a lot of credit at the feet of the first movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. They were attentive to the fan base, and the fan base rewarded them for being attentive. So good on the fan base for doing that. Because, and here's why I rated it so high, because most all of these movies that I have on here and thinking about what you all talked about, with the exception of Uncharted, for the most part, the movies we talked about are 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 years old. The fact that you can have an Uncharted or a Sonic and still be family friendly, and I'm going to use this term, maybe it's too over-aggrandizing, but reinvigorating the video game to movie franchise by how successful it was, I think that kicks it up a higher level for me. And I know we've talked about the movies, but that's why I rated that number 2, because I think hopefully it's going to reinvigorate, because there's a whole list of video game movies in the pipeline, and I want them to do well. It's like superhero movies. I want good superhero movies. I criticize them, but I want good ones, because as long as there's good ones, we'll keep getting more of them. So that's my number 2. And so it's been a long lead up, but I think it's been worth it. BrokenAnsible, you are on the clock. What is your number 1 draft pick in terms of a video game franchise that converted to a movie?
So I'm not going to allow you to escape your number 2 discussion,
What?
because my number 1 is Sonic the Hedgehog.
Finally, I'm on the right track.
So here's the deal. There is one moment in this movie so the movie is good all the way around, but there is this part of the movie that smacks you out of nowhere, and that is when Dr. Robotnik is in his zone. He's about to do some science, and he does a dance, and it drives me out. I was bouncing in my seat with him, man. This guy, Jim Carrey, is Dr. Robotnik. I wasn't going to talk about this in talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 2 when he actually looks like Dr. Robotnik in the second movie. So we'll talk about that a little bit maybe. In this movie, when he does his little dance and he's like doing his robot, he's doing his running from the dinosaur, the
skiing down the
skiing.
slope. Yep.
He's like doing this little dance of like he is doing the worm. I mean, this guy. So I think he, I'm one of those people who will absolutely distance the person from the art. I don't agree with him politically, and some of these things he's saying, I'm just like, dude, just shut your mouth. And I still find him to be one of the funniest people on the planet, and I would just want to have a beer with this guy. And just that, where does he get his kookiness? Like, what is his source for humor? How did he approach Ace Ventura? But Ace Ventura is his like classical character. But I think if I sat down with him today after this weekend, I would ask him, how did you create Dr. Robotnik, who has just been a face on a screen until this point, and an evil guy, a forgettable ends to a means so I could run really fast. You made me actually care. You basically, how they transitioned Sonic into 3D and whatnot, they kind of got away from Dr. Robotnik in some ways. Yeah. And they've tried to bring him back. And I really thought he single-handedly brought Dr. Robotnik to the forefront of my brain and back to Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic and Knuckles. I thought he was amazing. I thought that whole scene was captivating. I love how he is evil, but not that evil. You like him. When he's like Mal from Firefly, I just want you to do something wrong. I just want to see you do it. I don't want to partake it. I just want to see you do it because you make it look so fun. He makes villainy look fun, and he wouldn't be anything without his sidekick. Just how terrible he is to that person, who is an endearing character, by the way. I don't know if I should do this, but one of the things I hated about Ghostbusters 2016 was that there are characters that just didn't need to be there. They serve no purpose to the movie. They're filler. What background characters? You could have cut them from the movie and it wouldn't affect the movie whatsoever. And that's a movie that kind of stands out to me like that. There's a lot of movies like that, but that movie stands out to me. Sonic the Hedgehog does not have a character that's out of place. Having watched both of them, I thought when I watched the first one that the sister-in-law was that character in this movie. The fatal flaw, the Achilles heel of this movie, and in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, said, no, wait a second, let me tell you the rest of the story. That's one whole story, and I think if they do 3 like that too, it's just going to flow into the next movie. And that, I thought Sonic the Hedgehog it was a tentpole movie. It was a tentpole movie. It not just said video game movies are back. It said, you know what? We know how to tell a story that's going to hit everybody. My uncle loved this movie. I love that my uncle loved this movie. We laughed together. This movie was great. The animation was fantastic. The Sonic, dude, I felt so bad for Sonic when that whole story leading up. That kind of pulls you into the Wii U game. That 3D world that he's running in, and he goes up to his mentor, his parent, is effectively. And when he comes into this world and he's by himself, dude, they hit like a Mack truck on some of those emotions. This is a 3D character. He's not supposed to emote like that. They did it. The cast, perfect. I love the wife. She is the funnest person ever. She dismisses her crazy sister. The kid is amazing. Like,
Gotta
you're
go
wondering
fast.
you're wondering
Put my
where's
Fitbit on.
where's the dad? This aunt is just terrible, right? This lady, she's just terrible. Where's the dad? He must have left the scene. She's crazy, right? I'm thinking these things in my head. I'm like, man, I'm invested into her faults, and the kid brings Sonic issues. Oh my freaking! I was just like, you know what, man, you got it. You got me. This is I heard that this was like a buddy cop film, a road trip film. I'm just like, how does Sonic go on a road trip? He can go anywhere as fast as he wants. And they tell a story that you're like, what the heck just happened? You just got me on a road trip story with Sonic the Hedgehog. And the bar scene, I mean, come on, this movie is amazing. Deserves every penny that they get. I hope there's a third one coming soon. I was really happy to be able to watch them back to back. I bought it, and I'm gonna buy them both on Blu-ray. I have to have these on physical disc. This non-negotiable.
The first one, the part that amused me was when he pushed the 2 off the building.
Yep.
And Jim Carrey's like, that was unexpected, but
Yep.
I was expecting to experience something unexpected. So you didn't get me off. You didn't get me unexpectedly. I mean, it's just like,
dude, that character, all of them, but Dr. Robotnik, it's because he's never forward in the video game. I mean, he's at the end of the map sometimes. He was laughing at you, making fun of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the Dr. Wily of the Sonic universe. You wonder when they're gonna, ever be in a movie together. They probably were in the background somewhere in that Ready Player One.
Yeah.
But they're probably in the background somewhere that we just didn't see. But man, how dare they make the villain the star of a Sonic show so good? Like they dared to be bold, and they broke every benchmark.
Yeah.
I will say 2 things here. Number one, and I know I'm dating myself, but I really feel like Jim Carrey is really, had he still been alive and been mentally healthy, very much like Robin Williams was. In his spontaneity, in his creativity. This is an old movie, kids. Google it. You remember the movie Toys?
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. I
And
love
he's
that movie.
standing out in the field cutting a promo for his movie.
Yeah.
And it's absolute madcap ridiculousness. They just turned the camera on and said, go. And he went. Jim Carrey has that, where you're asking, where does this energy come from? Dude, some people are just born with that stuff, and they can tap into something that I can only wish I was that creative
Can you
and
imagine if
turn it
can you
on.
imagine if Jim Carrey and uh crap, we just said his name.
Robin Williams.
Thank you. Robin Williams and Jim Carrey were able to be in a movie together. Can you imagine that kind of energy?
I would hate to be the director because you'd never get anything done.
We're filming everything. Okay,
Yep.
we're making 3 different movies. The movie we're making, the 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 unrated version, and then the behind the scenes that will be a documentary. We're going to make Gold Hair 3 different times.
Well,
And
I think what
Netflix
would
is funding all
happen,
three.
yeah, it would be like that Dune movie that never got made back in the 60s. Um, what was that guy, Joe Jerkowski or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, where you don't get a movie, you get a documentary about the movie that wasn't
Right.
made. That's what you get when you get some of these prolific actors. I mean, for Jim Carrey to be outside of acting, it's like Michael Myers and what's that guy's from Honey I Shrunk the Kids?
Rick Moranis.
Yeah, you have these guys who have disengaged, and even Hayden Christensen. You have these guys because episode 5 is pretty sweet for some things, but of Obi-Wan. But you have these actors that are coming back to engage in the medium, and they really haven't lost a step. I wish Rick Moranis would come back, to Hollywood or to acting, um, maybe at another, at some other companies that aren't affiliated with Hollywood. I think that there's definitely they bring a lot, and some of their movies, like I'm not a Dumb and Dumber fan, I'm just not. A lot of people love it. I never really got through it. I was like,
This
maybe
is
I would.
dumb.
This is dumb, and
It
But
wasn't
that was
dumb, it
that was
dumb.
what they were going for. Yeah.
and it was, and I may watch it now because I'm a different person than I was when I was a kid. Or a teenager when it came out. Cause my buddy Arnold loved it. I mean, he couldn't get enough of it. But I was just like, oh man, I'm like tapping my wristwatch. Maybe I'd find it funny now, but to a lot of people, that was comedy gold.
Right.
And then you get Ace Ventura. I thought Ace Ventura 2 was good. I liked the second one. I thought the first one was great. The second one was better for me. And that's the one where he goes to Africa, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Yeah, he goes on safari, man. That he was still really good. I love the way he engages and the passion he brings. I mean, he was great in the that television show, in Living Color.
That's
He
true. Yes.
Now
Yeah,
we're
I
showing
mean,
our age again.
yeah,
exactly. We're old.
yeah. I I'm amazed that he's been through everything. Now he was doing that coffee, Jerry Seinfeld did that coffee chat thing where he drove around, they went to get coffee. It
Right.
was like
Different. Yeah.
yeah, it was a really weird show, but that was what he was doing, and he picked up Jim Carrey one time. Or maybe it was the other way around. They were driving in a Lamborghini or something. And Jim Carrey took him to his art studio, and it completely abstract, dude. You start to get into the mind of Jim Carrey, how he's talking, and then you see some of his paintings that he hasn't shown anybody, and you start to realize this dude is, when somebody is that funny and brings that much difference to the world and his approach is different a lot of times. Now he can grind a character into the dust, right? Because people keep laughing and keep paying, and money's nice. But he can do something totally different. And to see that he has an outlet like art where you see a completely different side. You may not even like the art, and you're thinking you could be making $10 million right now in any movie, and you're choosing to sit in your studio and contemplate how this paint should go up on this canvas. That simplicity, that thought is it's so important that people can understand that these people have more depth to their character in real life. And I think that Jim Carrey is one of those people who has tried to show that to the world in several different ways. And it doesn't always come out, it's not magnified, but it probably should be. Like his art is him. And it's not just his comedy. It's the other things he's doing that he wants to do. And then he comes back into Sonic the freaking Hedgehog and blows it away. I've gushed over Jim Carrey enough.
No, that's cool. Earl, do you have anything else you want to add to that? Or are
No,
you ready to reveal your number one?
yeah, my number one, I'd like to say that when you're looking at box office numbers and audience, how they react to movies, the video game adaptations specifically. Uh, there's only really one franchise that manages to break the mold, because every successful or semi-successful video game adaptation that comes out, they give them a sequel, and usually that's a horrible rendition. You can all or it's just not well received. Like Warcraft Tomb Raider, the second one, not so much. Or you can go down the list. Now, the one that kind of bucks a little bit is Resident Evil, that franchise. But each installment is kind of a different genre of movie. You had the first one,
Yep.
which is basic zombie. The second one, which was, the city's falling apart. We got to get out of here. Third one, they're now
Fight
in
or flight.
wasteland. Yeah, so each one's kind of a different genre. So that one is excluded a bit because they were able to climb, and they decreased a few times, but at the last two, they make more money than the predecessors.
Mhm.
So the one I'm going with is a sequel to 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 its predecessor that did very well, made a good deal of money, broke records, and the sequel that I'm going to choose is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. uh, so I don't know how, if we can't really talk much more about it.
Yeah, we beat that one down.
The only thing that I don't think we've touched on, the voice actors. They do a very good job. I mean,
Oh
a
yeah.
very good job. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the all the work that went into the design of the characters that made, because you can hear a voice and you can interpret emotion and feelings and inflection and things like that. But the uh, the CGI and the work that went into the design of these characters, you can look at Sonic and you can see what the voice and the emotions are conveying. Same with Knuckles and
The
and
dance off in
and
that
Tails.
movie is amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I have to throw the second one up there. It surpassed the original, something that isn't hardly done at all in the video game adaptations in the film or in general. Most sequels don't manage to hold up to the original. And number two did, it built on the success of the first one, or what it got right in the first one, and it elevated itself. And I look forward to the third one and the spin-off series of Knuckles. I'm definitely looking forward to that as well.
So I actually like the first one, I think, a little bit more. Although I'm not sure if I can take one without the other.
Mhm.
And one of the things about the second movie that it is really because you can't watch, you can, but it's, man, you miss out on a few things when you watch the second movie first, or
That's how I experienced it. I watched the
yeah,
second one first, and I was
yeah.
like, "Crap, I gotta watch the first one now."
So
And
there's two things that propel Sonic one over the two, for me, and that is and you nailed the reason. For me, that reason is magnified in two, and that is the emotion where Sonic, it has this emotional swing.
yeah,
You feel his loneliness.
yep,
You know what? I'm not, if people have depression, I'm not sure if these movies would do good for them overall in general, but I found myself really like believing in his loneliness. And that is really hard to convey in any film. The fact that they did this with a bloody CGI hedgehog because you're right. It's very hard for CGI to emote, and the voice has to be perfect. They do these little side camera angles where his lips are just barely moving, and he's talking low, and his shoulders are shrugged, and he's just
Yep.
like, I'm alone." And then he is playing baseball, has this the best time of his life because he's believing that he can live this fraudulent life being just a watcher of this community. And then the catalyst for the plot happens, and that's a believable moment, and he loses himself in that moment. That, and then you have the Dr. Robotnik dancing.
Of
Those
course.
two pieces are the shoulders of that entire franchise to me. That's what, like, I was like, this movie's going good, this movie's going good. And when those moments happen, it cemented them. So
Yeah.
I just want to say too, if anybody making these movies or fans of these movies, we should thank the people of the creators of this movie and the sequel. Just thank you for bringing this to the market. This is what people need to be watching. This is the type of these are the type of films, despite any genre, that should be being made.
Yep.
These have a net positive to children, to adults. You have people who would not be interested in these things by themselves laughing in front of me, living proof that people who do not care will laugh at this movie. And that is a net positive when you get people laughing. They're endearing, the characters are wonderful. They bring a lot of fandom into it. These things have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And that's the type of fan service people need, not the
Yep.
other type of fan service.
And it's proof that video game adaptations do matter.
Yeah.
That's the
And,
box when you watch them.
I want to see a Mega Man movie.
Yeah. Or
And
Power Man.
or Rockman. I want to see a Dr.
Battletoads.
Wily do it.
Battletoads.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
No, I need Double Dragons versus Battletoads is what.
Yeah, that's one of the
So-
best video games ever made, by the way.
Lord Cephas, what is your uno, your numero uno?
Well, unfortunately, it has been named already, so we won't. Fortunately, we'll not spend time on it, and that is Mortal Kombat. Again, it is the penultimate video game franchise that became a movie in the 90s.
Yep.
It dominated that space at least until Tomb Raider in 99, 2000. That was the definitive for several years, and so it did very well. And I think it still holds up to this day. So don't want to spend too much more time on it because we've gone long tonight, but I think it's been really good. But yeah, that would be my number one franchise, just because it's kind of the one that set the standard for what a good adaptation can actually be.
Yep.
Yeah, I will say that, it's very interesting that our 1 and 2 and 2 and 1s are very and our
And 4s and 7s
4s.
and
Yeah, it just, so when I approached this list, I did tell myself, because I didn't really know what the rules were or if there were any rules. I did not put any of the animated films in there, and there could have been many animated films in here, like Street Fighter the movie. That's
Final Fantasy.
and so I waffled. So I actually was going to put that at my number 10 because I like Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
Yes.
Yep.
I like the Advent Children too. But I'm not a Final Fantasy 7 sycophant. I'm
Yeah,
not going to
neither
tell
am I.
you. I do have the new one on the PlayStation 5 that I absolutely want to play, because I think that's how that game gets me. But I was never a Final Fantasy fan until the last couple years. But like my avatar here, I love Bravely Default 2. I think it's one of the best Nintendo games out on the Switch. I think that from what I understand, this is true to Final Fantasy 3, 4, and 5 with the jobs. And so I've been dipping my toes into Final Fantasy, and because I actually watched the movie in the movie theater, and I've probably seen the movie 10 times. Absolutely love it. It has nothing to do with Final Fantasy.
No, it doesn't. But
except the
fun.
characters, but there's no Crystal, it's Gaia.
Yeah, it's good.
It was going to be my number 10. and I just didn't want to rock the boat, to justify the 3D. But of course, Angry Birds, uh, definitely that. So yeah, Final Fantasy
That's your
was,
honorable mention.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's my honorable
exactly.
mention. Loved it.
Good
And
deal.
it wasn't Ben Affleck in it.
No, I think what was it? Michael Clark Duncan was in it though. I
thought
believe
wasn't Ben Affleck the guy who?
the main guy.
Yeah, I have to check this out.
We're doing the research. Well, while they're doing the research on that, we will tell you what we have planned for next week. The Earl and I are planning on seeing for the very first time in movie theaters G.I. Joe the movie. It was never released in 1987 when it was produced, and we'll talk next week about why that is. We will give our firsthand account review. We'll get very granular, break that movie down. It is a Fathom event, and we look forward to going and seeing that and experiencing it and seeing just what did happen to Duke. And we will leave that as a teaser for what you can expect next week. So we will have a full in-depth breakdown, especially the first 3 minutes of the movie, which are the opening, which is freaking fantastic. I cannot wait to see it on the big screen. Oh, it's going to be great. Absolutely great. And hopefully we'll be recording together in the same location. Actually, we'll be going to see the movie and doing that. So we look forward to doing that. Earl, do you have anything else you want to share with Pete?
All I have to say is Cobra la 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 la.
I wasn't ready for that, but I will be by next week. Broken Ansible, we appreciate you joining us this week, and we don't want you to be a stranger. You're welcome anytime. Thank you for everything. Thank you for busting our chops. We appreciate it. We enjoyed it. You are a friend and our brother, and we'll have you back on as soon as your schedule allows. Do you have anything else you want to share with the people?
Well, just that, hey, go watch Sonic the Hedgehog. Go watch a movie from your past that made you happy. These
Angry
are
Birds.
yeah, go watch Angry Birds and play the Star Wars Angry Birds game.
I'll never live this down. I see that now.
Yeah, I just want to say a really thank you guys for bringing me on, and it was really fun, and it was quite alarming to see that we had very much the same taste on a lot of things.
Yeah,
it is true. We might all just be cut from the same cloth. It seems like.
Yeah.
We can share the same padded room.
Yeah.
That's true. And then y'all can pick on me about Angry Birds the entire time. All right. Last thing before we go. For those of you that don't know that are new to our show, the Earl is a published author, and he's actually right now doing some movie reviews that are available online. You want to preview that, and everything he shares will be linked inside the description. You'll be able to access it. What have you been up to this week?
I've written a few reviews. One was for Interceptor. It's a film on Netflix that stars Elsa Pataky. It's a popcorn flick. Definitely check it out if you're into that genre. And the next day or day and a half, the movie review of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 will be dropping onto Microcosm, the online edition, and the links will be below. Check it out.
All right. Well, you can reach us on Twitter at the 3M Show Midnight Magic Musings. You can also reach us via email at midnightmagicmusings@gmail.com. And we will have other ways for you to contact us here in the weeks. That's exactly right, here in the weeks to come. Broken Ansible can be reached on Gab Social. He is Metatron on Gab Social, where he posts some of the most epic pictures of his baby Boo, his cat, who is one of the most loving creatures I have ever seen or met. So give him a follow as well. It'll be worth your time. Again, all that stuff will be in the description and the links below. All right. Well, on behalf of the Earl of Florida, on behalf of Broken Ansible, me, I'm just Lord Cephas. Everyone have a great evening. Take care. We will see you again next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.